All right, let's go ahead and get started, see what we have here today. Of course, it is election time. We are very excited, but also tentative. Tentative about what's going to happen. I mean, if you look at the numbers, here we have, of course, the most accurate pollster, supposedly, with Atlas Intel with their final numbers. 312 electoral votes to 226 electoral votes. So hopefully this will be the outcome, all right? However, of course, shenanigans abound, okay? But first, I guess let's cover this map before we get into that a little bit. Yes, looking down here, according to Atlas Intel, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all these swing states going towards Donald Trump. I hope this is the case. I hope this is actually what happens, but I do not know. So for example, come over here to just, my map I've got here on the 270 to win. I would say that Nevada would have gone for Trump, all right? Because over here, according to the Atlas Intel, they got Trump going, what was that? Plus like 5 in Nevada, plus 3.1 in Nevada, okay? So here's the thing. Nevada's Supreme Court just actually came out and said that yes, votes received after Election Day and votes without any type of postage stamp on them. So I think that because of the judge's rules, those shenanigans, I think this will go Kamala Harris. I hate to say it, but I think that's going to happen. However, I do think Arizona this time is going to go for Donald Trump. All right. I do think that's going to happen in this case because, I mean, with such a big lead, 5.1% over Kamala Harris, I mean, that's a huge gain. That's a huge gain. And of course, people are a lot more aware of all the shenanigans that happened there in 2020 and 2022. So I think that one honestly will go towards Donald Trump. I'll put that in that category. Now, of all these other swing states here, North Carolina, that one was one last time that went a few days after counting. It took a long time for North Carolina to actually get their vote tallies in. They were only surpassed by Pennsylvania, okay? But I do think that North Carolina and Georgia both will go for Donald Trump, which is something interesting because we've seen reports about kind of suppressed black vote in Georgia. So that means Kamala Harris, of course, has basically no enthusiasm among the black vote, okay? Which, of course, Donald Trump is doing extraordinarily well among the black vote, possibly upwards of 20%, maybe a little bit more. And if that does happen, of course, that's a huge game changer. And of course, many things people are saying is that, oh, Kamala Harris, not just people, of course, this is the polls, Kamala Harris is losing surprising support among Hispanics. She's down to like 32% support and Donald Trump's at like 48. And among black voters, 20%. I mean, you can't lose basically 30 points among Hispanics. You can't lose 10 points among black voters. You can't lose, 20 points among men and then somehow have this race being so close. So I'm hoping for a huge red wave. I'm hoping for something that is, Reagan-esque today, but we will see. We'll have to be patient. So I think that's what's going to happen in Georgia and North Carolina. Now, Pennsylvania, I think, is probably the most likely to go red. Right, honestly, because it's got the big working class, they've got all of the energy production there, right? So I think Pennsylvania, out of all of these, is the most likely to go red. Okay, and of course, over here, looking at Pennsylvania, Trump by +1. So that's a pretty close, it's a pretty close race, but I think it's going to happen specifically when you see the reports of the large Amish voters, right? They registered something to the tune of like, 100,000 Amish voters, all right, in Pennsylvania. And so that would be huge, of course, for Donald Trump. Now, the other two, looking at Michigan and Wisconsin, these are the harder nuts to crack. And this is actually what I want to discuss here. So Wisconsin, I think that's going to end up going blue just because of how entrenched they are, not to mention Tim Walz is on the tickets. And even though he's not necessarily popular, it just kind of shows the mindset of that whole state. I think that will end up going blue, to be quite honest. Now, Michigan, of course, is the tricky one. And I want to actually play you a bit of this. This was a story that came out a couple of days ago. About, of course, the voter integrity happening in Michigan. So let's go ahead and check this out really quick here.
Some of it stoked by foreign adversaries, Iran trying to do that, Russia trying to do that in the days after the election. Are you confident in the security and the integrity of the election?
Well, I'm confident in the security and integrity of the systems across this country. It's spread across 50 states. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be problems. We saw problems earlier in the week in Pennsylvania, and they were resolved by a court where people were not being allowed in one county from accessing their on-demand mail ballot at the spot. There are going to be issues like that. They're being confronted at the front end, and those things are being looked at. Look, in the state of Michigan, we know now, and this is not me making it up, I can't believe it hasn't received more coverage, a Chinese national registered to vote and voted. And now he's being charged for doing that. But guess what? His ballot's going to count. We know at least one non-citizen's ballot is going to count in Michigan because they don't know which ballot is and they can't retrieve it. These are facts.
Right.
Now, whether that's widespread or not, I hope not. But these are things that are happening and they need to be watched at. As far as foreign adversaries, sure. I mean, Iran wants to kill Donald Trump. Iran, this has been fully documented. They are trying to kill Donald Trump. You talk about violent rhetoric. He's the only candidate in this race, and not because I wish this on anybody else, who's had not one but two assassination attempts against his life.
Right.
So, of course, we're all concerned about it.
Right.
So yeah, that's something that's so important. And by the way, Mountain Lover, yes, Trump Vance 2024, save America. Okay. So this, of course, is something that it's a big deal. All right. We are basically having an election that could possibly be influenced by illegal votes. All right. This is something, of course, we have been warning about for a very long time. And what actually happened was, well, we have a voter, a Chinese national, someone who's not here able to vote, all right, not a citizen, and he cast his ballot. And this one was discovered. But guess what? Michigan has removed all of its guardrails. They have removed all of the voter integrity, basically, so you cannot track down what this vote was. You can't track it down and get it out of the system. It is going to be counted. And if this happened just once that we know of, chances are it has happened a lot more. All right. So this is something, of course, that is a big deal. Okay. And I can't stress that enough. So this was actually a pretty good little interview here with Marco Rubio. So let's go ahead and check out a little bit more of that.
Decided voters, particularly following that New York rally we referenced there with the insult comment, making remarks about Puerto Rico. You've been focused on outreach to Hispanic voters for the Trump campaign. Are you concerned that this unforced error hurt outreach?
Well, there was no unforced error. I mean, a comedian made a joke and it was tasteless, but it wasn't Trump that said it. It wasn't, this guy's not going to be in his cabinet. I mean, this comedian's not going to be a member of his government. He's certainly not running for anything. It was a comedian who tells tasteless jokes all the time. I encourage everyone to, well, I guess watch segments of the Tom Brady roast and you'll see the kind of jokes he tells. He's an insult comic. Look, there's no
At
new
a Trump
outreach
rally.
to... Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He spoke 2 hours before Trump. Well, again, I think what's more relevant, if you want to say, okay, so if it had to be done in hindsight, the guy probably doesn't get invited, okay? Especially with a joke like that. But I think more relevant is the fact that the sitting president of the United States said out loud what most people in the Democratic Party and hierarchy believe, and that is that anyone who votes for Donald Trump is garbage, is a racist, is a hater, is a Nazi, as the vice president candidate of theirs has accused anyone who attended the Madison Square Garden rally. MSNBC was running images of Nazi rallies from Germany side by side with images from Madison Square Garden a week ago. So there, you asked me, why are they so confident? If you're so confident about victory, the way that the Harris people say they are, then why would you be out there attacking, not Donald Trump, attacking anyone who's thinking about voting for him by labeling them as, if you vote for Donald Trump, you're this evil, horrible human being? That doesn't seem to me like the actions of a confident campaign. It seems to me like the actions of a scared one.
Well, I was speaking.
Yeah, so some very interesting points raised here as well. I mean, going back to that attack, right? We had Trump's rally where made the joke about Puerto Rico and their trash problem. And of course, Joe Biden comes out and says, oh, all of Donald Trump's supporters are basically garbage. Okay. And they're still trying to make a big deal out of this. And this interview, by the way, was just from last night over on Face the Nation. Okay. With Marco Rubio coming out and making these statements. So yeah, they're still trying to cling to anything they can actually say about Donald Trump, right? At this point, even though Donald Trump, like I mentioned, unprecedented support among Hispanics. All right. So basically the messaging that the mainstream media news is putting out is not working. All right. And thank goodness for that. Okay. So what I want to check out now, of course, back to my little map here. Yeah. So that's why I think that Michigan will end up going blue, is because you have no guardrails. You have no way of actually, stopping those votes from being counted that are illegal, right? There's no possible way that they can do it. They just can't find them. They can't weed them out. It's not going to happen. And so that's what we're seeing. So I think the race myself will be a bit closer, this 281 with the Donald Trump win, to 257 after it all pans out. However, like I said, the most accurate pollster over here with the Atlas Intel saying that, yeah, Donald Trump's going to get that 312. He's going to come out here and pull off the Nevada win. He's going to pull off the Michigan win. He's going to pull off the Wisconsin win. And then, of course, if he can do that, we've also seen the reports of Donald Trump making huge gains in Virginia and New Hampshire. I mean, if that happens, I mean, really, the Virginia would be huge. I mean, making those gains in Virginia and of course in New Hampshire, that would be just a tremendous, flip. All right. And truly wonderful to behold if that happens. So of course, that's pie in the sky. That's only if we have the whole, Reagan-Carter matchup situation going on. So a bit more than it happens. But like I mentioned, I think that Wisconsin and Michigan are not likely to go Republican. I hope they do. Nevada, I don't think is likely to go Republican. I hope it does, but I just don't really seeing it happen. But if it does pan out the way that Atlas Intel says, 312, but of course, if it does that, then possibly, like I mentioned, the Reagan sweep, and we have Virginia, New Hampshire possibly going for Donald Trump, right? And then we can get up to 329. That would be tremendous. But of course, the big thing I'm hoping for is not just a win for Donald Trump, but a massive win in the popular vote as well. All right. So Joe Biden, he gets that 81 million votes. I hope Donald Trump can surpass that supposed 81 million votes just by simply getting that popular vote out there. So all those Republicans who are stuck in California, get out and vote, right? Because we want to get those numbers bolstered. All those Republicans stuck in Oregon and Washington, get out and vote. All those Republicans in New York, get out and vote. Don't let them take your squirrels. All right? Get out there and vote. And let's, of course, put this over the top for Donald Trump. Now, of course, what else do we have here? I do want to look at this right here, something coming out of Pennsylvania, right? The voting shenanigans are happening. Let's go ahead and check this out. These are supposedly from voting machines down in Cambria County, a very red portion of Pennsylvania. And this is something we've been seeing reporting all morning. It's like, oh, we have the wrong ballots. We have the wrong scanners. What's going to happen? So let's just check out this video of people milling around, not being able to vote in a red county. And it's funny how all of these errors happen in only one way, one direction, right? It's never the Democrat districts, the Democrat zones that are, of course, having troubles and issues. No, it's only the red ones, the Republican districts.
Just not in the election office, and he is informing us that literally everybody in the county is having the exact same problem. Oh, yeah. So they must be getting overrun by calls. I am continuing to attempt to reach you. There is an option. I do have an emergency where you can fill out your ballot and stick in there, and I can take it up to the courthouse to be hand counted. The people that are in there now don't want to do that because they want to make sure that their vote is counted. It's not that they don't trust us, they don't want to do that, and that's what's holding up the line. I'd imagine if anybody here wants to fill out their ballot and put it in the emergency box to go up to the courthouse, I can take it out. If you guys want to wait till the machine is up and spinning it back and saying the...
All right, and then we just got the loop there. So yeah, there you go. Right? All these problems tend to happen in just one direction, all right? In a state that is highly contested, in a state that may have had shenanigans in the past, and here we are. That's what we're dealing with, okay? But let's see, I do want to point out something else here, if I can find it. Yep, here it is. All right. So last night, of course, Donald Trump held his final rally, and I do want to take a look at that. Not the whole thing, just a snippet. We have Megyn Kelly coming out and making just a simple statement about why she is voting for Donald Trump. I want to check this out. JW, sorry, just joining. What's the video about? The one I was just showing was Pennsylvania having some voter errors, right? So that's what's going on, of course, as has happened in 2022 and 2020 in Arizona, where, of course, red portions of the state have issues, and then people, of course, get disenfranchised, have to go to work, have to leave, can't vote, and that, of course, is happening again because it takes them years upon years to try to finish anything, right? And that's exactly it. And yes, I am nervous, but I am hopeful, right? Supposedly we have thousands upon thousands of lawyers, according to Laura Trump, right? Waiting in each of these swing states, right? In each one. Thousands of poll watchers, hundreds of lawyers on tap waiting in each swing state, and they're going out right now. But I do want to mention this right here. Megyn Kelly, she actually came out at Donald Trump's rally last night and gave an incredible statement. So let's go ahead and check this out.
But I do want to tell you the main reasons I am voting for Donald Trump. Number one, immigration. He mentioned it. And people like Lake and Rowley. I'll be thinking about her tomorrow all day. 22 years old, killed in Georgia, a young nursing student by an illegal. I'll be thinking about Jocelyn Nungare, 12 years old, in Texas, murdered by 2 Venezuelan illegals. President Trump closed the border. Kamala Harris opened it by choice. It wasn't accidental.
Yeah,
she
Killbot,
said
I
it
hope
would
it's
be
not close.
humane. That's what she and her boss believed. Tell it to Laken Riley's family. There was nothing humane about it. He closed it. They opened it. It was an intentional choice, and there's no reason not to believe they won't do it again. The boys should not be in the girls' sports. The boys should not be in the girls' bathrooms. The boys should not be in the girls' locker rooms. Peyton McNabb, North Carolina sophomore in high school, slammed so hard in the face by a volleyball hit at her by a boy pretending to be a girl, she suffered traumatic brain injury and permanent paralysis. Kamala Harris looks at her and says, "Be kind. Suck it up." And that's what's right. Why do our girls have to face brain damage in order to be kind to boys who want to invade their sports? And by the way, they are going into the women's prisons. She changed the law in California to make sure the taxpayers would pay for their sex change operations. She was not just following the law, she changed the law. President Trump will stop it. He got mocked by the left for saying he would be a protector of women. He will be a protector of women, and it's why I'm voting for him. He will close the border. He will keep the boys out of girls' sports and where they don't belong. And you know what else? One more thing. He will look out for our boys, too. Our forgotten boys and our forgotten men. Guys like you. Guys like these guys who've got the calluses on their hands, who work for a living with the beards and the tats, who maybe have a beer after work and don't want to be judged by people like Oprah and Beyonce, who will never have to face the consequences of her disastrous economic policies. These guys will. He gets it. President Trump gets it.
Yeah, so just pausing there for a second. Yeah, I think I hope it's not close. I think it's going to be, but I am very hopeful. All right, just to answer the chat there, JW. Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe I'll go back to my electoral map and recap that in a second. But yeah, what Megyn Kelly's pointing out here is who is going to be the one protecting women. It's funny how wokeness basically imploded. It started last year, right? At Pride Month, when Target came out, when Budweiser came out, and they all got the same treatment. People were disgusted by how they treated basically women, girls, boys, all this stuff, okay? And now, of course, this year, it seems to have all just fizzled out. You actually have who is it? Starbuck, Robbie Starbuck going around and exposing companies, Harley Davidson, what was it? The big construction one, the farm equipment, right? Exposing all these companies, and they're now actually eliminating their DEI offices, all right? So wokeness is over, right? People don't have any tolerance for this stuff anymore, all right? It's gone. Even Boeing came out and got rid of its DEI hires, all right? It's over, right? It's done. And so for Donald Trump to come out and glom onto this issue and say, like, hey, it only makes sense because the vast majority of Americans, at least 70%, agree that men should not be competing with women in women's sports, because what happens? Oh, they end up losing. And as was just reported the other day, I'll see if I can find this story in a second. The boxer, the Algerian boxer who just won the Olympics, right? Won gold. Turns out, yes, he actually was a man. Somebody had to leak his medical records, all right? And so what happened during that whole time? They're like, oh, he's actually a woman. I can't believe you're saying that's because she's more of a manly woman, right? And of course, what happens? It turns out, yeah, looks like at this point anyway, allegedly, he's a man. All right? He basically just ended up beating up a bunch of women until his last competitor, who was also a man, right? It's just like that billiards championship in England, where it was the women's competition. And who were the final two contestants? Both men. So yes, Title IX, which was supposed to, of course, protect women's sports, has now been turned on its head by the Biden-Harris administration to allow anyone into these sports. And now guess what's happening? Women's sports is now dying. It's like they didn't look at the unforeseen consequences, right? They didn't have that ability. I mean, holy crap. Tractor Supply, yeah. That's right. Thank you very much, Killbot. Yeah, Tractor Supply. So yes, I mean, that's exactly what's happening. People are done with wokeness. We're fed up with it, all right? It's not even really an issue anymore, except for to the crazy radical left. And of course, the other thing that is brought up there by Megyn Kelly is, of course, the illegal immigration, all right? You want to protect women in women's sports, but you also want to protect women in our country in general. Looking at all the murderers and rapists that have been let into this country. I mean, the numbers are astounding. It didn't have to happen, but Biden-Harris wanted it to because they want to shore up that voter base, right? They want to let millions upon millions of illegal immigrants into this country and then, of course, legalize all of them, thus creating a permanent class of voter, all right, and turning everything into California, all right? And this, honestly, is something I do want to spend a little bit of time on as well, because it's from the interview with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan yesterday, where Joe Rogan actually came out and endorsed Donald Trump. Total surprise move. It was awesome. I didn't personally expect it, but let's go ahead and check this out from Elon Musk and Joe Rogan.
And it's meant to be that you're roasting the president. Like, Trump's just there. He's like, actually, he's like there as part of the support. And then they turned it around and just started roasting Trump. And he's just sitting there. He's like, yo, I just came to the dinner. I'm just here to support.
We know what it was because of, right? The birther stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what it all was. It was all, Trump was at the head of a lot of these people spreading this rumor online that Obama's birth certificate was forged, then he's actually from Kenya. And what's weird is, if you go back to Obama's early days, there are some things that say he's from Kenya. Like, I think in his something from college said he was from Kenya. But, that could just be, people print things wrong all the time. It doesn't mean he's actually from Kenya. But Trump was one of those guys that was, like, spreading that supposedly false rumor.
Was he pushing it hard? This is the kind of thing where I want to just go and look at saying, what did he actually say?
No, he definitely was.
Okay.
He was definitely saying, look, I don't think he has the time to go into things, like, very deeply.
Yeah.
And so I think he could probably be influenced by.
Yeah, just to kind of comment on that, I will say the rabbit hole on the Obama birtherism was a deep one, right? When you actually see the PDFs that they have and the obvious little things that are going on there, it's a crazy thing. Now, of course, does it really matter? His mother was American, so of course, according to our birthright citizenship, he is American also, no matter what his father is, is from, etc., what his status is. So obviously it was fine. But yeah, when you look at those PDFs, it was weird. It was weird saying, hey, look at all these things. How is this different? Why is the font different over here? Why is this black, these edges, these sections that, it didn't really make sense. And so to have Trump kind of glom onto that, it's like, who cares? But yeah, that's not the main focus of this conversation, right? It's a little bit longer further away.
By a bunch of people, like these Marjorie Taylor Greene type people who come to him with some wild ass theory.
Sure.
He might be, and I think there's a lot of that stuff that gets fed to people on purpose so that they'll say incorrect things so that they're easy to dismiss. Sure. And I think there's also a lot of people that just make shit up and, they tell you the earth is flat and then a bunch of people watch a YouTube video and they believe it.
Yeah, well, but on that White House correspondent, I was there and...
Yeah, offering $1 million to see it. Yeah, it's like... Why not show it at that point? Give the money to charity. Here's my birth certificate. Walk out with it. Yeah.
The degree to which they attacked Trump at that White House Correspondents' Dinner was really it was so over the top. It was like making everyone uncomfortable.
Really,
it was really over the top. I think like sort of a passing joke of like, a few passing jokes are fine, but they twisted the knife big on Trump. In that, and you could see Trump just getting like angrier and angrier and more upset.
I wonder if
it's like, man, this is not good karma, That's what I was thinking at the time. I'm looking. I was two tables away from Trump, and I'm looking. I'm like, man, this is too much,
Well, Well, it's kind of crazy what they made out of that, because that's the kind of guy that if you tell him he can't do something, he's going to just keep trying. Like, what?
It was a big mistake to rag on him so much at that White House Correspondents' Center.
Well, just look at the way they've attacked him with just using the legal system, like this thing in New York where the 34 different felony counts that were essentially misdemeanors, that there are bookkeeping errors that they decided, even though it passed the state.
See, I had no idea that Elon Musk was actually at that correspondence dinner. That's interesting, because that was the night where they're all saying, "Oh, you're not going to win," making fun of Donald Trump, really going hardcore at him, and you can see him on that video just getting more and more upset, right? And of course, he ends up winning, and that led to all the epic meltdown videos, right, with the Hall of the Mountain King song being played underneath. Truly wonderful stuff. But I had no idea Elon Musk was there. But now, of course, Joe Rogan's getting into the New York lawfare, the obvious lawfare against Donald Trump.
Statute of limitations. They decided to try him for these. They didn't identify a felony.
Abuse of the law is what's going on.
But most people would have quit.
Yeah.
Most people have to.
Yeah, actually, Killbot, I don't have a Discord. So I'm an old man. What can I say? I don't know how to run the Discord. And, I hear people do it all the time for the chats and the video and all that stuff. I'm just like working off my laptop here. I wish I was a bit more high tech.
The E. Jean Carroll lawsuit and this lawsuit and all the other ones, the insurrection thing, the Georgia thing, all these different things. They getting kicked off of Twitter. Most people would have just like, this is too much. I can't take this. But he's so fucking crazy. He's like, all right, come on, we're going to war. And he just digs his fucking heels in and keeps going.
Yeah.
It's the wrong guy to do that to.
It
just
is the wrong
like
guy to do that to.
Attacking him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, most people would have been humiliated. He got angry. And he's like, yeah, all right, you say I can't be president? I've been thinking about running for about 15 fucking years.
Right.
Finally, I'm going to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a real bad move. But yeah, I mean, I could certainly understand like making some jokes about like, a few sort of passing jokes on Trump. But man, I was there at that dinner and that they ragged on Trump so much, it was insane.
The reason why I would push back on that, because I would say there's a bunch of different speakers, right? And Trump would obviously be a target. And if they all attacked him, it's because he's like, if you're going to make fun of people in the audience, and especially in the zeitgeist, that whole birther thing was big.
Yeah.
And most people were dismissing it as being a ridiculous conspiracy theory. So who the fuck is this guy saying this?
Sure.
And so you have 8 to 10 individual speakers that are writing monologues. Of course, they're all going to hit Trump.
Yeah, well, anyway, obviously it was a mistake. They shouldn't have done that, but I invite people to watch the original source material, and I think a few jokes are fine. It's like, but it's like he shouldn't be it felt like he was the primary object of the roast.
Yeah,
which is that's not the whole point of the thing. Is it's the roast of the president, not a roast of the audience.
The thing about it is like he's easy to roast.
Yeah,
and then on top of that, Obama was like loved and cherished by the left.
Yes.
And most of those people are on the left. There's only so far you can push. You can't ask him about a chef. There's like what happened with the chef, bro? You can't. There's like certain things you can't bring up.
You want
to?
Yeah, buying Twitter. I love how Joe Rogan actually came out and is like thanking Elon Musk publicly for buying Twitter, because honestly, buying Twitter, turning it into X, allowing free speech, allowing people to, bring back and forth these, ideas, just being able to talk about things, whether they're true or false, backed up by fact, opinion, whatever the case may be, you have to have free and fair public discourse. And that, of course, has actually led to many other like Facebook, many other entities like Facebook and even YouTube to some extent, allowing more and more free speech. Like now we can actually come out and say, hey, I think the election was stolen, and not be worried about being demonetized or kicked off the platform, right? Even that by itself is a huge win, all right? Huge win. So Elon Musk buying Twitter was tremendous, all right? And I thought in this clip, I know they're going to talk about it, but I was hoping to get to a little bit earlier, 20 minutes. I don't know.
What's your favorite sport? Paddleboarding?
Yeah. Wasn't that guy a really good swimmer?
Yeah.
Tell me what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't bring that up.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to roast Hillary, you can't bring up the death count.
Like, Hillary, what's the best way to stay in touch? Email?
Yeah, it's if you're doing one of those
she
things.
destroyed the servers and poured like bleach on the servers, like computers.
She poured bleach on them?
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I believe. That's like it wasn't just like they took a hammer to it. They like destroyed like there was no possible way to actually get forensics on the thing.
What was in there? I mean, what?
Yeah, the whole Obama chef situation, very strange, isn't it, right? Definitely, I mean, allegedly, 100% definitely not the murder of a gay lover, right? Didn't happen, right? The same way that Hillary Clinton, right? Definitely 100% allegedly not killing off people who knew secrets about the Clinton administration were going to be whistleblowers, right? Definitely not. Nothing like that available here.
That's what I mean.
What was in there? What was in there?
Why would they care so much?
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
And
is
there was
crazy.
no legal action against that, which is clear destruction of evidence.
Well, it's also there's this other narrative that always drives me crazy is that he's going to destroy democracy. So in order to destroy democracy, we have to install a president without a primary.
Right.
We have to have a candidate that is the least liked vice president of all time, the least popular vice president of all time, and then use gaslighting and the full force of the media machine to turn her into the future. And hope,
right.
And then she's gonna be changed, even though she's the sitting vice president. And then on top of that, this idea of change when the Democrats have been in control for what, 12 of 16 years,
right?
Which is crazy. Like this is the change.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
Yeah, the craziness about replacing Joe Biden with Kamala Harris it's off the charts. It's off the charts. She was the least popular vice president in polling history, right? The least popular. Everyone knew she was a complete and utter joke, right? Everyone had memes about her, both sides, all right? And then, of course, they get rid of Biden and then replace him with her, honestly, because she would be the perfect puppet, right? The perfect puppet for the deep state to control, all right? So if you like the way things are going now, put in Kamala Harris, you'll have more of the exact same thing, right? And of course, the Democrat voters, some of them are actually really upset about this, not enough in my opinion, but some of them say, hey, where was our primary? Why are we stuck with Kamala? Of course, she did kind of inject a little bit of excitement and enthusiasm back into the campaign. The DNC was a big show of force for them, but where did it all go? It's gone, right? It all fizzled out, and thank goodness for that, because Donald Trump has been, of course, surging in the polls.
I view this election as a turning point, like a fork in the road of destiny that is incredibly important. I've not been politically active until this election, and the reason I've been politically active this election is because I think if we don't elect Trump, I think we will lose. We will lose democracy in this country. We will lose the two-party system. And let me explain why. So there's only like six or seven swing states. The margin of victory in those states is small, often like 10 or 20,000 votes. What the Democrat administration has been doing is importing vast numbers of illegals into swing states. You can look at the numbers on the actual government website, meaning you don't take my word for it. You'll just look at the numbers as reported by the government, which is controlled by the Democrats. And what we're seeing is triple-digit increases in the number of illegals in every swing state. In some cases, 700% increases. These are gigantic numbers. So if you have a state that has a 10 or 20,000 vote margin, and you put 200,000 illegals into that state, you 10x you swamp the. It's not a swing state anymore. It's going to vote blue, and then once the swing states vote blue, there is no election anymore. There's only a Democrat primary,
which is so crazy, and it's so crazy that people are fine with that.
Well, I guess people on the left will be fine with that because they think that's a good idea.
Well, they just want to win. They just want to win.
Correct. Like the thing is, one does not need actually any grand conspiracy theory for this. You just have to look at the simple matter of incentives. If the Democrat Party wants to win, like basically achieve permanent victory, all they need to do is turn the swing states. Turn the swing states blue, they have permanent victory.
Yeah, so this is a great point. And yeah, Killbots, yeah, it's funny how, Biden had to be replaced, right? His mental faculties, his physical ability, it wasn't there for him to actually run for a second term. But currently, he's totally fine, right? They don't want to get him out of office right now because, yeah, he's totally good for a couple of more months, right? But yeah, this is the part I wanted to get to, where, Elon Musk makes the very clear and obvious point. What happened in California? Oh, you legalized essentially millions of illegal immigrants into the country. And now, of course, they're all voters. And now you have this permanent voting class that has gone Democrat for years. I mean, don't forget, Ronald Reagan won California just back in the 80s, right? So we're talking just 40 years ago, okay? And now look at today, it is a blue wall that will never be cracked, all right? And that's exactly what they want to happen in all the swing states. All right, that's exactly what they want. And that is why, of course, they want to have no guardrails on our elections. They want to go ahead and get rid of any type of accountability. They want to get rid of chain of custody. They want to get rid of never implement voter ID. Heaven forbid you walk up and say, here's who I am, right? This is me. Please allow my vote to count. No, you can't have that. But we can go ahead and register you at the DMV. And that, of course, proves federal ID for some reason, even though in a lot of these states with these Democrat heads, they allow illegals to get driver's licenses now. So wonder how that ends up happening, all right? We have to have ID to vote, and now you can register at the DMV and get automatic voter registration. And now, of course, you can get your ID even if you're not a citizen, and then magically everybody wonders, how are these illegals voting? All right, it's not rocket science, right? It all leads one to another, all right? That's exactly what's going on. And for Elon Musk to just basically point this out, say, yeah, they want to import a bunch of voters, they want to legalize them across the board, and then boom, all these swing states are now Democrat states. And also, not to mention, a lot of the Biden administration, Harris, they have been flying in millions of people into this country. And I was just looking at this the other day. The numbers are insane. All right, you have basically 200,000 illegals for the year of 2020 to 2023 going into red states. You have going into blue states. I apologize. And then 700,000 going into red states, all right? You think they're trying to, overturn the population by giving mass amnesty in the red states as well? And then from 23 to current 24, you have over 1 million. So the same 200,000 going to blue states, but then over 1 million illegals being flown in to red states. All right. So in basically just, a couple of years span, 3.5 years, you have 1.5 million new voters put onto the rolls potentially in these red states. And all Biden Harris has to do is get control of the Senate and the House and say, you know what, mass amnesty for everybody. And now all these red states turn purple and all these swing states turn blue. And that, of course, is what Elon Musk is warning about. All right, let's go over here. Yeah, now it's a third world country. Yeah, California. I mean, I have to go to California several times a year right now. And I mean, don't get me wrong. By and large, it's still nice, but you drive through some of the cities, you drive through the freeways, it is filthy. And I remember driving through there as a kid, right, going to Disneyland with my family. And I was like, wow, this is really beautiful. All right, so this would have been just probably back in the 90s, okay? But now going through there, I'm like, man, what a rat's hole. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still really nice places. There's still really nice property, right? They still have some really good things. But is it what it was? And the answer, of course, obviously is no. But that's, of course, what happens to all liberal cities, right? You have your really nice parts, but then you have the parts that people have to actually live in.
And then we're a one-party state, and then they will keep doing that. Obviously, they will keep stacking the deck by bringing in vast numbers of illegals into the swing states. Keep stacking it so that the next election, each successive election, will be worse than the last one. And that's what's happening. If you want to see, like, well, is this actually going to happen? Well, look at California. California is supermajority Dem, 70% Dem. A month ago, they passed a law making it illegal to show ID in any election in California. So a friend of mine went to vote in Palo Alto because he was like, "Is this for real?" He tried to show his ID, and they reacted like if you show a cross to a vampire. Okay, they're like, "No, we can't even look at that ID." It is illegal for them to even look at your ID if you want to present it in California.
Why?
For any election at all, even.
See, and there's the interesting thing, because California still does have some Republican standouts, some Republican strongholds. And it used to be a couple of years ago, I mean, we had the mass exodus under COVID from people moving from California to Texas and Nevada, etc. But it used to be you actually had more Republicans in California than you had in Texas. The population was that much bigger. Of course, it didn't matter because you had such a huge Democrat base, right? You had the supermajority, as Elon is talking about there, this Democrat base that basically, controls everything. So even though you had a couple of pockets, but now, of course, the Democrats in control are like, you know what? You pockets trying to, preserve your vote and have your representatives elected. We don't like it. We're going to take that away. There's no way you can enact, your own voter ID, right? We can't have that, right? We can't have that. You got to, of course, have no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, no chain of custody, nothing whatsoever. As soon as a vote is into the system, and this, of course, is what they want, as soon as a vote is into the system, it's going to be counted, right? And that's all that matters. And that's what we learned in 2020, by the way. Let's all go to Cali and vote for Trump. Yeah, I mean, if they're not taking ID, you just show up and be like, oh yeah, I'm just recently here. You know, I totally a resident, totally a resident. You can't ask for my ID, please. Yeah, all it takes is a couple million people to show up and say, yeah, let's vote for Trump today. Of course, the traffic would be bad.
Like city council.
What logical reason other than to cheat would you ever have that law?
The reason is to cheat.
But the only
Obviously.
it's only like you can never make an argument any other way. And I think 84% of people polled believe that you should show ID to vote. So it's against the will of the people.
Yes, and we are extremely rare. We're an outlier in not requiring ID. Basically, almost every country on earth requires ID to vote. So as soon as you ban ID for voting, it makes fraud impossible to prove. Because how do you trace the fraud?
Right. Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane.
It's insane.
And what I'm saying is that
how is it legal?
What I'm saying is like this election is the last chance to preserve democracy in America. Mark my words. Everything they accuse Trump of, they are guilty of. And if Trump doesn't win, this will be the last real election in America. And we will, if the big government Kamala puppet machine wins, they will legalize the illegals in the swing states. There will be no swing states. Every election going forward will be a guaranteed Democrat win, and it'll actually be worse than California. The reason it'll be worse than California is because the one thing that keeps California from being super crazy is that you can move out of California, like you and I did. You and I used to be in California, but we moved to Texas. We're still in America.
Yeah, and just going back to the voter ID, issue, Joe Rogan raises it up. Yeah, it's voter ID across party lines is popular. It is something that people want, right? 80%. We're talking about Hispanic voters, black voters, white voters, Asian voters. It doesn't matter. It is a winning issue. And yet for some reason, it's the Democrat leadership. They don't want voter ID. And we all know why. We've just been talking about it for 10 minutes. We all know why they don't want voter ID. And that is, of course, to change the country's electorate, right? It's the great voter replacement theory, okay? They want, of course, take over and turn these states into, no longer swing, no longer red, into purple and blue states, right? They want to basically subvert the entire election system, as Elon Musk points out right there. And yeah, this may be our last chance to save it. Now, of course, there's a couple of guardrails. In order to, of course, have mass amnesty, you have to have the Senate and the House. And it looks like the Senate is probably going to go to the Republican hands by 1 or 2 votes. And by seats, I should say. And it looks like the House is going to remain in Republican hands. So that's why I'm hoping for a Donald Trump victory, because he's got his team in place. He is ready to go. All right. He's not going to make the same mistakes he did the first time around back in 2016. All right. He's not going to have these sycophants, these suck ups, these people want to try to manipulate him and control him and write their books and get their money, get their payday. They're all out of there. He's got his team to get his agenda through. And that's what I really want to see. Okay. That's what I want to see.
But if the Dems win this election, they will legalize enough illegals to turn the swing states, and everywhere will be like California. There will be no escape.
That is so insane.
This is the final. This is it. This is the last chance.
Has anybody tried to push back?
And I just want to go out and vote. Vote like your life depends on it. Vote like your future depends on it, because it does. This is the last chance, man.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great plea. I guess in the chat, what do you think? I mean, what's going to happen if Trump loses today? I don't think he will. I hope he does not. But what do you think is going to happen if Trump loses today? All right, that's basically it. Is this our last chance? Do we have, the ability to recover from this? I mean, we've already seen the ravages that happened by allowing 20 million plus illegals into our country. Right? We've already seen that. We've already seen the ravages of what happens from overspending by the government with all of our inflation. We've already seen the ravages that happen around the world and in our country from allowing, having weak leadership, allowing criminals to run rampant and allowing bad actors around the world to flex their military might and muscles. All right, we've all seen it. Right? Is this our last chance? This is the only place left. If America goes down, there is no other freedom. All right, we're all going to have to run to what? El Salvador? I mean, we're all going to have to go someplace where there's still free speech and rule of law. All right, and where is that? Where is that? Let's see. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show there from the Joe Rogan podcast yesterday with Elon Musk, right? With Elon Musk making the full-throated plea, get out and vote, right? The Republic is in danger, right? You want to say democracy, go ahead, right? But the Republic is in danger if Kamala Harris is elected. And we have 4 more years of that agenda. Now, just to kind of recap over here, as I was talking about earlier, we have, of course, the Atlas Intel, the most accurate pollster, making their final prediction of Trump 312 to Kamala Harris 226 electoral votes. This, of course, has me feeling very good, hopefully, right, barring shenanigans, but Donald Trump basically swinging all of the swing states, right? He's winning all of the swing states: Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, right? And Polymarket, of course, has him up. I don't really care about Polymarket too much. It's just people betting with their money. So that's good to know where the sentiment is at. But as far as the pollsters go, Atlas Intel has it down. Now, as far as my own personal prediction, the worst case scenario, let me come back over here to my map. I was just kind of pontificating earlier about New Hampshire, and New Hampshire is blue, of course, and Virginia is blue. All right. But all of these states coming in, that of course gives Donald Trump the 312. Nevada, as I mentioned way earlier, I don't know if Nevada is going to go blue because, as I also talked about, Nevada Supreme Court basically just said you can actually accept ballots mailed in without postmarks after Election Day. So I don't see how Nevada is going to go red, right? I would love it to go red, but with that rule change, you know, the jig is up. Now, even though there's a Republican governor there in Nevada, you know, it's totally blue legislatures. So I think Nevada will end up going blue, right? I hate to say that, but I think that's going to happen. And over here, of course, Nevada, 3.1 plus for Trump in Atlas. So I hope I'm wrong about this, but I don't really see Nevada going blue for going red for Donald Trump. The same thing with Michigan and Wisconsin. Right, Wisconsin, I think, is the harder nut to crack. I mean, you got Tim Walz. I always say Waltz with like a TZ. You got Tim Walz, and he's the governor. And even though he sucks and he's not popular and he's crazy and insane and all that stuff, Tampon Tim, we all know that. He's the result of the mindset of the state. All right, if they didn't agree with him on these issues, then they wouldn't have voted him in. So I think Wisconsin ends up going blue, even though that's I believe the slimmest margin of win, right? 0.9% for Trump. I mean, I hope it happens. Maybe they're so upset and disgusted with Tim Walz that they actually vote red, but I don't think he takes Wisconsin. And the same thing with Michigan, right? Same thing with Michigan. They've removed all of their guardrails. You can't even have a recount based on the possibility of cheating, right? They changed their laws. They changed their voting laws, all right? So if you think that someone was cheating, who cares? You don't get a recount. All right, we're not going to go for it. We're just going to say these are the results, and we're happy to have those results brought out. And there was, of course, this little tidbit with Marco Rubio earlier on Face the Nation.
Typically hear from someone that works at a think tank. Oh, fine. But I think it's truly not just unfair, it's egregious to see that reported the way that it was, along with other things that are out there. I've never seen such a concerted effort. Look, I've always believed there's bias because no one's unbiased, but I've never seen such a concerted effort like what I've seen, especially in the last 2 weeks, among multiple media outlets in this country.
So really quick, just to pause that. Yeah, Co-ops SG, or GX, I should say. Yeah, if we lose, I mean, what's the recourse for that? Because we know what happened last time. When we actually went to D.C. to let our voices be heard, they tracked people down for years, people that didn't even do anything remotely violent, and they held them in jail, and then they finally prosecuted them, and you get these exorbitant sentences. So if something happens, you know, we the people, we definitely need to step up and let our voices be heard, but how would that look? I think if Trump loses, I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to win. I am optimistic, all right? But if there are crazy shenanigans and Trump ends up losing, I don't think we're going to have the same type of reaction as we did in 2020, because we all saw the lawfare and the craziness, how that played out, All right. But then again, maybe the reverse is also true. Maybe people would show up and then not be suckered into this vast, FBI plant, Antifa plant conspiracy of, false flag operations, getting everybody involved, violence turning into chaos, etc. Okay. So maybe the opposite would be true as well. Maybe people would show up, but simply stand back and be like, hey, we're just here to peacefully protest like we were the last time. But then, of course, a few bad actors and, of course, response by police. I mean, you see that video where the crowd is out there just kind of milling around and happy. And all of a sudden, rubber bullets start flying everywhere. All right. So, maybe, who knows? Who the heck knows? Let's hope it doesn't come to that. And we definitely need to let our voices be heard. And the way we let our voices be heard is we get out there and vote, right? Take your family. Take your sons, your daughters, your wives, your mothers, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, get out there and make sure they vote. All right. But if they're Biden supporters, maybe just don't let them know.
To, in some cases, breathlessly distort and lie about what's being said and to create and manufacture these gotcha moments against Donald Trump. I've never seen it before. It's over the top.
Senator, you are the ranking member on the Senate Intelligence Committee. You also know that former commander-in-chief is not just some guy off the street, and words matter. U.S. intelligence has specifically warned about the risk of political violence in this country. Some of it stoked by foreign adversaries, Iran trying to do that, Russia trying to do that in the days after the election. Are you confident in the security and the integrity of the election?
Well, I'm confident in the security and integrity of the elections, and especially because we have strong systems across this country. It's spread across 50 states. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be problems. We saw problems earlier in the week in Pennsylvania, and they were resolved by a court where people were not being allowed in one county from accessing their on-demand mail ballot at the spot. There are going to be issues like that. They're being confronted at the front end. And those things are being looked at. Look, in the state of Michigan, we know now, and this is not me making it up, I can't believe it hasn't received more coverage, a Chinese national registered to vote and voted. And now he's being charged for doing that, but guess what? His ballot's going to count. We know at least one non-citizen's ballot is going to count in Michigan because they don't know which ballot is and they can't retrieve it. These are facts. Right. Now, whether that's widespread or not, I hope not, but these are things that are happening and they need to be watched at. As far as foreign adversaries, sure. I mean, Iran wants to kill Donald Trump. Iran, this has been fully documented. They are trying to kill Donald Trump. You talk about violent rhetoric. He's the only candidate in this race, and not because I wish this on anybody else, who's had not one but two assassination attempts against his life.
Right.
So, of course, we're all concerned about it.
Right.
All right, yeah, so that's basically what we've already covered way earlier. It's probably been about 45 minutes, but I wanted to play that again for the newcomers. Yeah, we've already had official election interference, right? We had a Chinese national, right, not American citizen, vote. He was caught. His vote is fraudulent. His vote should not count. But in Michigan, there is no way to retrieve it, right? They have gotten rid of all the guardrails. His vote, which is fraudulent, is going to be counted. And as I said a couple minutes ago, the whole point of this exercise of illegal immigration and documentation and all that stuff, it's all to get the votes into the system, because as soon as they're in the system, they will be counted, and there's no way to get them out. It's like peeing in a swimming pool. Okay, there's no way. You have to drain the entire thing, which of course is why I think you have to have these big voter roll purges, right, that they're trying to do. And of course, I do want to point out this as well. I believe it was Virginia, where they actually were going to purge 100,000 illegal voters from their voter rolls, and the Biden-Harris administration sued to say, no, you can't do that. You cannot get rid of those voters. Why would you sue to keep illegal voters from voting? I mean, it makes no sense. You know what the end game is. As we just played with Elon Musk, we know what they want to do. Okay, that's what they want. And here we have Marco Rubio, right, a sitting senator, Intelligence Committee, saying, yes, we actually had an illegal vote with no way to retrieve it. And this doesn't worry anybody. This doesn't get any headline news across the country. What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? That, of course, is where we're at. And I think I never finished off my thought over here. So, 281, how the heck did that happen? Oh, yeah, that's right. So I think that Wisconsin and Michigan, I think, will end up going blue. As much as I want to, believe Atlas Intel, the most accurate pollsters, right, as of the last election cycle, as much as I want to believe them, I don't see Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan going blue, right? I don't. But that still means we have a win for Donald Trump at 281. All right, that means we still have a win. Now, as I also mentioned earlier, if, all right, this would just warm my heart. I would love to see all of the swing states go for Donald Trump. I'd love to see that clean sweep that is being predicted. But if that clean sweep happens, then of course, what else could happen? Could we have a Ronald Reagan surprise where, of course, all these other states that haven't gone blue in forever actually come out and, hey, all of a sudden we get some electoral votes, right? From, like, say, Virginia, right? What if they come out? And New Hampshire, right? What if they come out? We have Donald Trump possibly getting 329. I mean, that would be truly amazing if that, of course, happens. All right, so let's go ahead and check this out. I want to switch gears a little bit. Of course, you have the unhinged left, right? The crazy left out there who are never Trump, no matter what, trying to convince Republicans like Trump is this, existential threat. He's directly responsible for January 6th, right? He's going to bring down the republic. He's going to end democracy as we know it. And of course, people like Bill Maher are all over this idea. So let's go ahead and check this out.
And when it comes to things like, when it comes to same-sex marriage, that's completely out of the platform because of Trump, right?
That's the great part of being a cult leader, is that no, seriously, is that when it's about personality, and this is true, and it's funny you bring up Hitler. It's like he's the one talking about Hitler now. I think it's hysterical that for years now, you guys don't seem to care at all that the only human who he has ever not shit on is Putin. Like everybody else gets it. Friends, enemies, people back in the fold, everybody gets shit on except, and a couple of other dictators he likes. But now he's sort of like thrown that mask away and just like, I like all these people who are Hitlerian. Let's just say I like Hitler too.
Well, I mean,
it's kind of funny.
Well, here's the thing about the whole Hitler thing. So, as somebody who has a bit of a dog in the Hitler fight, right?
I was going to say.
Like the funny hat, says something about it.
Yeah.
As somebody who actually cares about this sort of thing, I was with Trump like 2 weeks ago at the grave of the Lubavitcher Rebbe with the hostage family, where one of the kids is being held right now in captivity by Hamas, American kid.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something Hitler didn't do. That.
Right.
So for all of the jibber jabber about the stuff he says, the thing I've always said about Trump is that on his gravestone it's going to be written 45th, maybe 47th president of the United States. He said a lot of shit, and that's true. He does say an enormous amount of shit. And the way that I look at Trump is, and then what does he actually do? And I've noticed many of the people who are calling him Hitlerian seem to be perfectly okay with the pro-Hamas protesters on campus or with slow walking aid to Israel in the middle of a war with actual people who agree with actual Hitler. I mean, in Gaza, they used to have like an actual store called Hitler 2. That was like an actual shop. It was a clothing shop in the Gaza Strip. It was reported on by the Jerusalem Post in 2015. And like, I'm more concerned about that, frankly.
Nazi uniforms were sharp. There's just no way.
Yeah, so just to comment on that, Bill Maher, of course, saying that, oh, Donald Trump, he makes fun of everybody except Putin, all right, except Putin. Well, and Xi, all right, he made fun of Kim Jong-un, of course, in North Korea. But here's the thing. What Bill Maher doesn't really understand, what the left doesn't understand is, yes, you have to talk and act tough. But when you're faced with trying to actually have a peaceful world, you do have to work with these despicable people. And calling them the worst, terrible, evil, etc. isn't going to go very far. Even if it's true, it's not going to go very far in terms of, getting along, in terms of making the world run smoothly. So, of course, you want to present strength. And, of course, as the story goes, that Donald Trump basically called up Putin and said, hey, if you make any moves, right, towards Ukraine, we're going to go ahead and go after Moscow. It's just, we're going to go after Moscow. It's going to be so big. It's going to be huge. That's my bad Donald Trump impression. But that's basically the idea, is that Trump exuded strength, but he was always polite, a flatterer even, because he didn't want to sit there and insult these people when he's trying to make deals with them. He's trying to get along. He's trying to have the world run smooth. And we saw the same thing with Xi. China, of course, is our biggest political enemy. And Donald Trump himself always goes after China. He always talks about the rigged system. He always talks about the double standards, stealing IPs and all that stuff. And that's what Donald Trump does. But when it comes to President Xi himself, is he even called President Xi? Leader Xi, whatever they call him, their Communist Party over there. When it comes to Xi himself, oh yeah, he's a powerful guy. He's a smart guy. You're not going to sit there and say he's a demon in human form, right? He has slaves in his country, which he does, right? He has horrible slave labor, right? They oppress their own citizens, right? They throw people who disagree with the government in jail, right? That, of course, is what dictators do, all right? We all know that. But if you're trying to have world peace, you want to exude strength, but there's no need to come out and for these people specifically be like, screw you, because their armies, their militaries, their technology are on par with ours. All right. So that, of course, would be the point. And that, of course, is why he was able to make fun of Little Rocket Man, is because he's kind of just toiling down there. He's a servant to China, etc. And so he's just, oh, you don't have a nuclear weapon. You're not really a threat to us whatsoever. Go ahead and make fun of that guy all you want. But of course, if you're trying to actually have world peace enacted, not a good look to go out there and insult the other leaders of the world. All right. So, of course, that's something that the left doesn't quite understand.
Way around it.
Listen,
it's just no. You go, boss.
Hitler did do one amazing thing. He did kill Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah. But the uniforms were just on point.
You go, boss, man.
I mean, among other, yes, but I mean, just the way that the cut on those, like especially the general's uniform with the red stripe on the leg, and also those leather full length,
snazzy,
just with the lapels, everything was just. Now there are things I don't like about the colonel.
So that's kind of funny that Bill Maher right there, he's making a joke out of it at the end, of course, but he's coming out and complimenting the outfits of the Nazi party. All right. So would you say you're doing the same thing you're accusing Donald Trump of doing? All right. Would you say that? I mean, just an observation.
But I can answer your question there about he just says stuff. I mean, you're so sanguine about this, it just amuses me. And it won't in the future because, yeah, he didn't do a lot of the stuff he said the first time, but he tried. Hillary, lock her up. Yeah, he tried. He tried to get Sessions to do that.
Not really.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't.
And he certainly tried to not honor the election. And as I said from the beginning, didn't concede. He tried everything. He did not have in place enough lackeys and stooges to pull it off the first time. That may not be the case the second time. That's my worry about Trump. The whistling past the graveyard of, he says a lot of things about the enemies within and all these words and phrases that we heard from places where they did conduct pogroms about people. That's exactly what they said in Rwanda.
Okay. I mean, I think that if you're believing that Donald Trump is a figure who's about to massacre the Houthis,
I don't.
Houthis or the Tutsis, I mean,
but if they were here, he would.
I highly.
The Houthis, they're eating the pet. The Houthis, the Haitians ate all the dogs and the cats. The Houthis go for the hamsters.
So, of course, this is something the left is, really harping on. Donald Trump, he says the worst things ever. He's a terrible person. Judge him by his actions. And, of course, the left at this point would be like, January 6th. Okay, we can get to that. But let's judge him on what he did for the economy. Let's judge him by what he did for world peace. Let's judge him by what he did for the border, right? Let's judge him on all those things that had really, really, really good outcomes for all of Americans, right? Can we talk about that stuff? But no, January 6th, he obviously didn't concede the election. Well, was there a peaceful transfer of power or not? Did it actually happen? Yes. January 6th, Trump felt that, and his constitutional right, he felt that it was basically stolen. And he felt that if he could get those electors back to the states, which, by the way, was legal, which is why the Congress had to actually come out and change the law, because they didn't want that to happen again, apparently, right? It was legal to say, you know what? We don't believe these fraudulent electors. We want to send it back to the legislatures, because so many states had actually taken out the legislative process where the governor essentially was in charge of sending in the electors, when, of course, this should be a power given to the legislatures themselves, right? Not the governor. Okay, and that's all Trump wanted to do. He said, hey, a lot of this stuff violates the Constitution. Let's send it back to the electors because I think there's problems with these votes, and let's see what they have to say. Because, of course, there were still lawsuits going on at the time, right? Was all this stuff wrapped up yet? No, it wasn't. And in hindsight, coming out, oh, there actually has been a lot of voter fraud in a lot of these very same states that we've seen, right? There were places where, elections were flipped by just 20 votes or so. Okay, so this stuff did happen. Okay, but according to Bill Maher, all of that was just totally crazy. Never mind the FBI insurgent plans, never mind the Antifa plans, never mind the false flag operations, never mind the police actually shooting rubber bullets into the crowd, spontaneously. Never mind any of that stuff. Donald Trump, for some reason, is in charge of the worst thing in American history, apparently. Okay, but that, of course, is what Bill Maher hinges his whole argument on. And it's really frustrating because Bill Maher himself has actually had kind of an awakening, right? He's actually woken up and said, the left is crazy, the woke stuff is stupid, but Trump is still worse than any of that. He's worse than, transitioning kids. He's worse than forcing companies to have people who aren't qualified, which of course degrades the products, right? He's worse than, having these wars all around the world. Trump is far worse than any of that stuff. Yeah, let's see. So co-ops SGX don't want to think about losing, but say we don't know where the people need to set up. And oh wait, sorry, that's an older one. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
But here's the thing. I keep asking people, what's the practical path for Trump to do this? I've actually said to people, if you actually want Trump not to deny the next election, then probably he should win, because he ain't sticking around for a third term. All he wants is to win. Once he wins, he frankly, really,
again,
on a practical level.
Again, that's adorable that you think that.
You think he wants to stick around after that? The only reason he stuck around this time is because he lost last time. That's the only reason he's there.
I mean, he's not even unique in this. Once you get to be president, once you have the plane, and wherever you want to go in the world, you can get there faster than any other human being, because they will clear the countryside, the streets, they will clear everything. Once you have all those kind of perks, you never want to give them. Look at Biden. He must have known that he was a shell of his former self, but you cannot. It's like flying private.
Yeah, but he's eligible. I mean, Trump's not eligible after this.
Once you fly private once,
they can't even list him on a ballot. I mean, once his second term is over, it's over. And as far as the people he's going to appoint to his cabinet, they have to go through Senate confirmation. I mean, here's the thing about Trump. And again, we don't have to talk about Trump the whole time, but the systems of government, the checks and balances, were built to stop stupid, blundering attempts to overrun those boundaries. They really were. I mean, that's why you can say that Donald Trump tried all this stuff and it failed, because the system was basically built for that. What the system was not really built for was the takeover of institutions from the inside, and then the gradual weakening of those institutions. So, for example, the use of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to try and cram down vaccines on 80 million Americans, right? Or the attempt to ram down, alleviation of student loans single-handedly, and then after the Supreme Court says don't do that, the attempt to continue to do that. Or the activation of the Department of Justice to continue investigating Trump apparently for everything under the sun. These sorts of things, they can be abused that way. And those abuses are pretty serious.
I'm not going to follow.
Yeah, so this is something else that Bill Maher says that is really just kind of ridiculous. So Donald Trump, he doesn't want to give up power, and yet he already did. Donald Trump wants to go beyond, if he wins today, he wants to go beyond a second term, right? Which is not possible, all right? But of course, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator, so even though he didn't do that in the past, he wants to do it now. And he'll actually try and attempt it now. So why in the world would you ever think that, all right? He gave up power once, and albeit he went through the court system, went through all the proper channels first, and as I mentioned earlier, the left would say, he organized January 6th, etc. We already talked about that. But the fact that he didn't do it before means that he wouldn't be able to do it again. All right, or wouldn't attempt to do it again on his own volition. All right, it makes zero sense for Bill Maher to say, that's cute, Ben Shapiro. Go ahead and say that Trump wouldn't try to make himself a third term or a fourth term or a fifth term. The argument doesn't make sense, and that was a good smackdown by Ben Shapiro saying, he wouldn't even be allowed on the ballots, all right? But then he'll come out and make himself a dictator. If he was going to do that, his best chance would have been back in 2020, where completely unarmed insurrection supposedly occurred, right? But it didn't happen, did it, Bill? All right? America plodded on, as usual, under some of the worst leadership we could have possibly imagined with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. But we all know how that turned out.
Follow all those trails, because we're here at Club Random. But I could. Some of what you say I agree with, some I don't. Let's end this section of our conversation with just this one question. If he does do these things that I fear, will you admit it?
Sure.
Yes.
Of course.
I think he will. I think you're an honorable guy.
I mean,
I do.
I opposed him when he was doing this between November and January last time around.
Okay, but he did it, so how could you possibly forgive it?
I mean, I don't forgive what he did between November and January, and now
Right.
I'm faced with a binary choice between two candidates. And who do I think is going to be
But you really,
closer to
you
the
really think
policies I want?
And this is something that kind of drives me crazy about Ben Shapiro. I like him overall. I like the Daily Wire overall. I just recently get the feel that they're just in it for the money, right? That's just me personally. I still appreciate their organization. I still appreciate what they do. I like having the conservative voices out there. But this drives me crazy how Ben Shapiro isn't going to acknowledge that, you know, there were some shenanigans, that all those people that showed up on, you know, January 6th, we had some legitimate concerns, right? We had legitimate concerns about what happened, and it seemed like nobody, the courts, the media, you know, nobody would really take it seriously. And unfortunately, Ben Shapiro kind of falls in that camp. The election, totally safe and secure. Best election ever. No fraud whatsoever, right? And shame on Donald Trump for trying to, you know, sway the American voter otherwise, okay? So that's what I don't necessarily like. But, you know, as Bill Maher says, if this happens, would you admit it? Yeah, we'd all, if Trump actually tried to declare himself leader of America without an election process, I wouldn't accept it, all right? Because that is, you know, by definition, dictatorial. All right? I wouldn't accept it. So yeah, Bill Maher, none of us would say like, oh yeah, let's go and replace our current, you know, republic with some type of, you know, communist structure, right? We don't want that, okay?
You really think the hellscape that would be America would be worse under Kamala? I mean, again, all the woke stuff. I mean, this is last week's editorial that I did, and this week, they both kind of have the same theme, which is that Kamala, you need to convince the undecided voter that you're not a stealth woke nut.
Yes.
That's it.
Are you convinced?
No, but I would take that even over, as much baggage comes with that, it's still better than the guy who doesn't concede elections, loves Putin, loves autocracy, fundamentally doesn't understand that that's the linchpin to America, the peaceful transference of power. No, I don't think he would ever give it up. I don't think he would ever say, I lost.
So can I ask you the countervailing question?
And he will probably try to pass it on to Uday and Hussein.
So you've asked me, you know, if Trump does all these things, will you admit it and
Yes.
say that? And I said, okay, so if Kamala turns out, if she wins, and she turns out to be just as stealthily woke as I fear she will be, and if she pursues the bad kind of foreign policy that I think she will, I assume that you'll also come forward and say that.
What I will admit is that she was a stealth woke nut. I will not admit, because I haven't said it now and never have and never would, that that is yet worse than not conceding an election.
Understood.
That to me is the absolute bottom.
So I think that if you're going to make a bet, to be fair, just to, you know, if we're going to put it in people's lap, then the bet is basically, do you think there's a better chance that Donald Trump ends up being a Hitlerian tyrannical dictator who overruns all the boundaries of power?
Right.
Or do you think that there's a better chance that Kamala Harris is going to be a stealth woke nut who runs America into a ditch? And I think there's a way better chance of the latter than the former.
Yeah, but yes, maybe so. Don't know, but a good question at least. What is not a question in my mind is, if the worst outcome of each happened, which is the worst of the two?
Fair. That's part of the calculus.
And you agree with that?
Well, I mean,
it would be worse
if Donald Trump turns into Hitler. I think that is worse than Kamala Harris being a bad president.
Not Hitler. He's not going to kill all the Jews. He likes the Jews.
He does.
And so do I. The marketing.
All right, so yeah, what are we seeing there? We're seeing that, yes, we know Kamala Harris is, you know, basically closeted woke. All right. We know that she is got all of these progressive ideas. How do we know she has them? Because she herself has said them. She is on record in the past. But of course, with her reinvention as being basically the new Democrat nominee, she has had to backtrack and flip flop and do 180 on every single statement she has ever said. But of course, this is what the Democrats always do. To get their nominations, even though she didn't have a nomination process, they have to run to the left, right? They have to be as woke, as leftist, as liberal as they possibly can. And then once they have the nomination, now it comes time, you know, put on the mask, pretend you're basically middle America, pretend you're basically a conservative, right? You're going to govern as a conservative person, even though you were just out there espousing socialism and communism and loving their ideas of, you know, price fixing, etc., right? Even though you were just saying that, now all of a sudden I'm the one to do do the exact opposite of everything I said I was going to do a little while ago. But that, of course, is the MO of the left, okay? And that, of course, is what drives me crazy about Bill Maher in this instance, right? He thinks that Donald Trump's going to turn around and in his second term become Hitler, something he did not do in his first term. But Kamala Harris, somehow she's going to be less woke than she was previously, right? Not going to happen. Not going to happen, all right? So that's basically where my thoughts are with that. But I do want to come back over here and look at this bit of Megyn Kelly speaking at last night's rally for Donald Trump, just to kind of round out this little segment here.
He will not look at our boys like they're second-class citizens. And ladies out there who want a bit of girl power in this election, let me tell you something. How can you win when the sons and the husbands and the brothers and the dads you love are losing? It's not a win. We care, young women and older,
Christopher MAGA, vote,
about the
get
lives
out.
of our children, the safety of our children. And we need not get so obsessed with what happens when they're in the womb that we forget about taking care of them once we're here and they're loved. Last point. What I don't want, what I don't think you want, is the left's version of masculinity. You see that ad they did about Trump voters trying to encourage women to lie to their husbands so that they could vote for her instead of Trump? That's their version of what marriage looks like. An overbearing husband who bullies his wife into saying she voted one way as opposed to an honest, open relationship. Oh, wait, I'm talking about Kamala and Doug. Okay, sorry. Where was that story in the news? Where was that story? I don't remember a single media person, not one, who sat with him, asked him about the abuse allegations against him by a successful professional attorney who has great details, who has receipts, who has witnesses. No one even asked about it. I'm not into their version of toxic masculinity or new masculinity. I prefer the old version. Them, all of you, and I prefer a president who understands how to be strong and how to fight. I hope all of you do what I did last week. Vote Trump and get 10 friends to vote Trump too.
All right, so a couple interesting points right there. Talking about young men, right? The left's version of men and what's been happening to young men in this country. So right now, currently, female college graduates, right? Higher than men college graduates. And of course, we've made a concerted effort. I'm not saying women shouldn't go to college, okay? So anybody out there watching right now, okay, what I'm saying is men have been left behind. There has been a push in this country for the last 30 years to get, women into college, get women involved in STEM, get women involved in the educational process, etc. And guess what? It has worked. And it's worked so well that young men now are not graduating at higher rates or the same rates as women. Right? They've been outpaced. And of course, there is no outstretch. There is no outreach for young men, right? There's no one out there saying, hey, this is what men are. This is how you should act. This is how you should, go around and, start a family, raise a family, provide for a family, protect a family, right? This is what men do. All right. There's no one saying that. Instead, what do we get? We get toxic masculinity, right? You get this inbred feeling that that's probably the wrong way to put it. You get this ingrained idea that you are an awful person. So you have to be, anti-toxic male. You have to be more submissive. You have to be more, whatever the case may be. But there's nothing out there, of course, that says that a man can't be both strong and kind. A man can't be both smart and powerful, right? There's nothing out there that says, and I would actually say that, yes, those are things a man should be: smart and kind, strong and powerful. Those are things, that men should be. But of course, the left's interpretation is nothing but detrimental to young men. And this, of course, is what's given the rise to Jordan Peterson, of all people, right? Well, I guess two things. First, of course, is the left going crazy, and of course, the dangers of communism and socialism that he outlines, in pretty much so many good speeches. I won't even try to outline them, but he gets out there and he preaches against those evils. But then secondly, how do young men improve themselves? How do you fix your problems? All right. What do you do to become a better, successful person? All right. And that, of course, is all the anti-woke stuff that is being mentioned here by Megyn Kelly. All right, that's exactly what we're seeing. And we don't want to have their twisted version of reality, thrust upon our youth. We just don't want to see that. And we definitely don't want to see, the men in women's sports and the men in the women's bathrooms and locker rooms and changing rooms. We don't want to see any of that. But of course, in a place like Wisconsin, with Tim Walz is putting tampons in the boys' room and taking away kids from parents who don't believe that, the whole gender transition thing is anything other than a mental illness, right? That's exactly what the left is advocating for. And that is what Megyn Kelly is coming out and talking about here. I love that. I love that so much. All right, let's see. Anything else? I want to see, just coming back over here, yes, I am hopeful that according to the most accurate pollster, according from the last election, Atlas Intel, that this is the result, right? Trump at 312 electoral votes and Harris at 226 electoral votes. I'm hoping for that clean sweep of all of the battleground states that they are predicting. I'm hoping. I don't personally think that is necessarily going to happen. I think it's more likely that we're going to have sorry, me pontificating again over here about what I want to see, what I'd love to see. But I don't think Nevada goes for Trump just because of the recent court rulings there. I don't think Wisconsin goes to Trump just because their mindset is they voted in Tim Walz, so we know where they're at. And I don't think Michigan goes for Trump because they've removed all guardrails from their election process. So I think Trump still wins, but more likely with a 281. All right, that's what I personally think Trump is going to win with. I could be wrong, of course, because nobody knows the future. If we did, we'd be millionaires. But that's what I think is going to happen. Or fingers crossed, we have that huge Reagan push, right? That huge Reagan push that would just have states that we never even imagined, states like New Hampshire, Vermont, or Virginia, possibly flipping over and going red. That would be tremendous. I'd love to see that, but chances of that happening, well, I don't know. I don't know. I see so many positive stories out there. I see the Democrats in such panic. It's kind of hard to imagine it. It's maybe not as likely to happen, but could. So I think that 281 is a definite possibility. I think that's what it will be. Although I've got my fingers crossed for Atlas Intel or more, right? I got my fingers crossed for that, and I'm hoping, but we won't know for several hours. But that's why I started my live stream show early here, is because we're all going to be watching, Steven Crowder or Tim Pool or the Daily Wire. We're going to see their live coverage, right? I'm just here, pontificating about what's going to happen, talking about people who are making recent statements in the media, etc. And speaking of recent statements, let's go see what's trending over here. We've got, let me pull up Twitter. Pardon the loading time. Let's see what's happening in New Jersey. New Jersey, of course, became a hotbed for Donald Trump when he went and, campaigned there, etc. There've been lots of man on the street interviews talking about how, New Jersey is, Trump country, etc. And so here, yep, looks like we got I love the drivers for Trump. I remember I participated in one of those myself. Oh man, they're so good. Check that out. Yeah, that warms the heart to see all that. I mean, participating in one of those motorcades like that was awesome. Check out that truck, nice. It's a 250. But yeah, just the Trump signs, the flags, driving down the highway. I mean, it's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but it's still anecdotal. But hey, it does prove that even in a place that's blue, like New Jersey, Trump still has lots of support. Okay, lots of support. Let's click on, actually, let's check out a little bit more out in Jersey here. Anything else interesting? Remember that story from a couple of days ago? They forced a woman to take off her Trump shirt so she could vote. So she did. Older lady voted in her bra. Nice. All right, nothing else happening in New Jersey, but we do have trending over here. Oh, here we go. Here's something. Trump said he could win New Jersey. An army of Jewish voters flooded the polls in Lakewood to vote for Trump. And that, of course, is the Jewish vote. Well, when you have basically the ethnic Jews who traditionally vote Democrat, but then you have the religious Jews who vote Republican. They're always more conservative. So who knows what could happen here? All right, who knows? Let's see what's happening in Arizona over here. Also trending on Twitter here, on X, as it were, I should say. I still can't. I guess, can anybody let me know? Because it's called X now. It's no longer Twitter. And we used to call it a tweet. What do you call it now when you make a post? Is it just a post? I mean, what do you call it? I just don't know. So let's see. Here is from Republican Mayor of Mesa, Arizona. John McCain always taught us to put country over party. Oh, and this is why Arizona, oh man, has such issues, because they keep electing Republicans who turn out to be rhinos. So here he is endorsing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Why? Why possibly? I don't know, because the machine in Arizona apparently is so Democrat controlled, even though they have Republican city, legislators, etc. They're still willing to do this. How can you do that? I don't understand whatsoever. All right, so just a little anecdotal piece here. My name is Nico D'Angelo. Hey, he does online videos, doesn't he? I'm 17, live in Arizona. I have pounded hundreds of signs, knocked hundreds of doors, and have helped hundreds of people fill out their ballots red all the way down. Let's win this thing. Hey, good for you. All right, he's done more than I have. Okay, I went out and voted. I preached voting, but I didn't actually volunteer this cycle. Right? I didn't actually go out and do that. I should have. So good on this guy for doing that. Right, warms the heart to see that happening. Breaking news. Twice as many Republicans are showing up on election day in Arizona. So, of course, that's something else I want to point out, which is what has me very optimistic. Republicans have shown up in force in the pre-election, right, in the early voting. It's been wonderful to see that. I mean, the numbers are staggering. But also, will we show up on election day, a day we traditionally own as Republicans? Right? It looks like it's going well, at least in Arizona. All right, thank goodness for that. So it doesn't look like we have anything really breaking, except for this dude here. So nothing really new breaking here in Arizona. Here's Kari Lake. Man, Kari Lake, I still love Kari Lake, don't get me wrong, but it looked really dire for her for a long time. I'm hoping she ends up winning this seat. We had a couple of polls this week come out showing her ahead, and I hope that holds true, all right? Because honestly, I love this lady. She was great. But seeing her last election run, with all the shenanigans that happened, we had only, as we mentioned earlier, maybe an hour ago at this point, that, yeah, only Republican precincts seem to have all of these problems, right, in Maricopa County. Never the Democrat precincts, just the Republican strongholds, okay? Just something to watch out for. So I think she was done dirty on election day back in 2022. All right, so that's what we have here. Let's just go to the home really quick. I'm trying to see if there's any updated information we need to discuss, anything being parsed out. Let's see what we got here. Elon Musk just posted something here, and it looks like we got Morning Joe telling some garbage. Let's check it out.
In recent days, he was going to execute Liz Cheney with a firing squad, 9 guns pointed and shooting at her face. A man who has said that he was...
Right off the bat, I barely started the video. Yeah, so rattling off more Trump hoaxes, okay? Yeah, I didn't read that first. Yeah, the Liz Cheney, the training of the guns, the execution, blah, blah. This is so thoroughly debunked, and you can do it easily just by watching what Trump said. Put a gun in her hand and send her out there into the battlefield to see how she's going to feel with 9 guns bearing down on her. All right, this is such garbage. But of course, it's the Morning Joe, so what did I expect?
He was going to shut down CBS because he didn't like how they edited an interview. A man who said he was going to be a dictator from day one. A man who said he was going to terminate the Constitution.
All right, shut down CBS because of how they edited an interview. How about the way they tried to help Kamala, actually try to interfere with the election process by holding back her nonsensical answer and editing it in with a different answer, right? How about that? And also, don't forget Joe. Do you know what a joke is? Right, when he's sitting down with Sean Hannity, and he says, "Oh, they're gonna call you a dictator. Yeah, will you be a dictator?" And he says, "Only on the first day. Only on the first day will I be a dictator. I'm gonna get so much done on the first day." So clearly a joke. But since the left has no sense of humor, they are not allowed to interpret it as anything other than literal. Right? That, of course, is what we're stuck with here. Thank you very much, Joe Scarborough, who, by the way, someone seemed to die in his office when he was a... we won't talk about that, though, right? Allegedly, definitely was not an intern that some type of affair with. No, alleged.
Constitution, a man who said he was going to use the army and he was going to use the National Guard on his political opponents. I literally could go on all day, and yet you talk to Trump voters and they'll go, "He didn't say that. Wait, now I didn't hear him." And then you say, "Well, here's the quote," and then they'll go, "Yeah, he didn't mean that." So There's something far more long-lasting than just Donald Trump, the candidate. There is a sort of Russian embrace of disinformation, a radical devaluing of truth over the last 9 to 10 years, and a complete ignorance on civics and what the term Madisonian democracy even means, what checks and balances.
Yeah, why is civics gone, right? Why have we weeded out civics from all of our high schools? Why is that class no longer a thing? All right. Oh, because if people actually knew the Constitution, knew their rights, knew the way government was supposed to work, then possibly we couldn't have this massive overreach of government, this whole misinterpretation of the Constitution we've been witness to for the last 30 years. Oh, maybe that's why it's been gone. Joe, ask about why civics is having a problem. All right. It's not the right doing that. It's the left. It's the communist, socialist left interfering with the whole education process of America, which, by the way, is pretty bad at this point as well. As a teacher, I know how that goes.
Even means, what judicial review even means, what the rule of law even means. How do we as a nation, even post-Trump, how do we reach those Americans who apparently didn't go to civics class, apparently didn't learn the basics of this Constitution, and have just been overwhelmed with disinformation over the past 9 years?
Yep. So yeah, overwhelmed with disinformation, I would say, over the last 9 years by the mainstream media, Joe. That's exactly what's been happening. I mean, just to come out and blatantly say, it's like Obama just the other night and Kamala Harris just the other night, was it 2 days ago? 2 days ago, both of them coming out and saying, oh, the very fine people on both sides hoax once again, right? Debunked even by left-leaning Snopes, saying that, yeah, Donald Trump never said that white supremacists and white nationalists and Nazis, blah, blah, blah. He never said that they were very fine people. He said the people that were in the crowd to protest, taking down statues, historic statues, those people were very fine. All right? That's what he said. But of course, those are the types of lies the left always spreads, because the truth always seems to hurt the left, doesn't it? So of course, that's why they have to obfuscate and lie on everything. All right, what do we have down here? Oh yeah, this was an interesting story. Dixville, the first in the nation, right? You have a town of apparently, is it 7 people? All right, and they went for Joe Biden back in 2020, but this year it's tied 3 for 3 with apparently 1 abstention. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, right? Very small town. Oh my goodness. Oh, and Guam is in. Harris 49, Trump 46. Interesting. But in 20, and Guam, of course, they vote, but their votes don't count in our system. But Biden had 55%. Now Harris has 49%, and Trump had 41, and Trump now has 46. So hey, that could possibly be some good news. And don't forget, back in 2022, Guam actually ended up going pretty much red, Republican, and that's why a lot of people thought we were going to have that huge red wave. That didn't actually play out. We did win some seats, etc., but it didn't quite pay out, and a lot of that was because Guam went so early, and everyone's like, oh, hey, Guam's happening, so maybe the rest of the country will follow suit. No, because apparently Mitch McConnell is always too busy giving out money to rhinos and not supporting races in states that could actually flip seats to make a difference, right? But, we won't talk about that. There's definitely no involvement of Mitch McConnell with the CCCP, all right? Definitely not, allegedly. All right, anything else happening? Anything else going on here in the current vote? Oh, that's a good picture right there. Although I'd say even without the eyes, that was phenomenal. I mean, talking about seeing Donald Trump almost get assassinated. I mean, this is probably the biggest story of the entire election cycle. This should be the biggest story. And the media just hushed it up as fast as they possibly could. All right. Oh, just from Jennifer Williams, massive waiting times to vote in Pennsylvania and many other states. There have been all kinds of computer glitches and other technical problems with their voting systems. Yeah, that's the true. And actually, I just saw that Dominion got very upset. I'll try to see if I can pull up that story. Dominion actually got very upset with one of the county clerks who's in charge of voting, after she came out and said, the stories from yesterday, that, yeah, there's all these problems with the Dominion machines. We've got these glitches, these errors, and Dominion's out. Oh, we're very upset. So I wouldn't surprise if there's another lawsuit against her. She'll probably lose millions of dollars for the state, etc. Simply because they don't want to have, any type of possible stain on their already stellar reputation. A reputation, I might add, that Democrats also didn't trust. If you go back to 2017, all right, go back to 2017 and watch the documentary on HBO about how, all these machines, all these voting systems can be hacked, and hacked quite easily, and votes can be flipped and turned, all right? But of course, we can't have any of that mentioned nowadays. Yeah, so I'm still trying to find that story. I'll see if it pops up. But yeah, Dominion is big mad. Here we go. Let me get this up on the screen here. If it'll load. One second. Nathan Wood. Yeah, I'd say Harris was definitely 46. I mean, it wasn't Biden. It wasn't Biden. You see him shuffling around, and it's definitely not happening. Wow, this is chugging right now. All right, what the heck? Dominion Voting Systems accuses Michigan Soros-funded Jocelyn Benson of peddling misinformation. All right, so she actually came out and said, yeah, there was a glitch, there was an error, there was all types of stuff happening, and now Dominion is pissed. This is total misinformation. Our systems are totally secure. Yeah, why does a voting system have to be hooked up to the internet? I don't know. Why does a voting system have a complex operating system? I don't know. Why isn't a voting system basically just like a Scantron machine, if you know what that is, right? You bubble out your stuff, you run it through, and zing, you have the result right away. I don't know. But of course, according to Dominion, having people come out here and say, hey, there's problems, there's glitches, there's all types of things happening. Misinformation, disinformation. All right, so let's see right down here. Back to, let's see, Killbot. Civics like calling everyone Nazi. Yeah. Are we talking about Honda Civics? No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's what the left does, right? Everyone they don't like, everyone they don't agree with is, of course, a complete and utter Nazi. All right, let's see if I can read this here. Dominion requested corrective action from the Michigan Secretary of State's office regarding an inaccurate claim that there is a nationwide issue with Dominion voting assistance terminals that are offering split-party voting. On October 30th, the Michigan Department of State and Bureau of Elections updated its information on the State of Michigan Election Fact Center to affirm the position that the issue is specific to Michigan. All right, so apparently not nationwide, Dominion. It's just in Michigan. All right, the underlying issue that promoted a public reminder of October 25th, 2024 is the Michigan voters seeking to successfully complete and verify their ballot selections using Dominion voting assistance terminals. That's at their election cycle and is available. The reminder reiterated information contained in a September 24 customer advisory notice to Michigan election officials. The Michigan Department of State has confirmed there is no issue preventing any voters from making their preferred selections and casting their paper ballot. Dominion has no machines in any other state that offer straight party voting options like the state of Michigan does. So there's one state that has straight, I guess you can just click it and go for party. All right, that's interesting. I did not know that. I learned something new. Thank you, Dominion, for telling me that. But apparently only one state offers that as an option, and you couldn't get it right there. So that, of course, brings into question a whole bunch of other things to my mind about your voting systems, Dominion. All right. Enforcing the law equally will help. Would help civics. I agree. All right, enforcing the law equally across the board, that would be great. Thank you very much, Killbot 2000. Killbot 2000. That's a great name. Great name. All right, let's see over here. Where were we? Oh yeah, the Trump assassination. Yeah. So the biggest story possible, and yet it's just been swept under the rug completely. Do you remember? This is why Biden had to drop out. This is why Biden dropped out, because Donald Trump was surging in popularity. Biden, of course, was being revealed as just he's got dementia, right? Basically, just that's how it is, right? He's got dementia. And it was all revealed to everyone on national TV during their debate. All right, so Donald Trump whoops him in the debate. And then, of course, we have this assassination attempt. And then we have the RNC, which was electric, right? The RNC was off the chain. All right. As exciting as the DNC was for the Democrats, the RNC was more for the Republicans. All this stuff was lining up. So that, of course, is why they had to go through extreme measures of ousting Joe Biden, a person who already had all of his votes, right, in his preliminary voting to go ahead and become the incumbent, stay the incumbent, I should say. And they replaced him, right? They replaced him with Kamala Harris, right? Where was Kamala Harris's electors, right? Where was her run, her campaign run? Oh, that's right. It was all the way back in 2019 when she, was so unpopular that she didn't even last until the actual primary started. All right. But of course, Joe Biden had to pick her because he already came out and said he wanted to pick a black woman as his VP, making her the most prominent DEI hire in America. And of course, that is where we're sitting at right now. Now, I do want to see this over here. We have just popped up in the trending Blue Wave 2024. I do want to see this. I heard, who was I listening to? Scott Adams. Scott Adams was talking about indicators an election would be stolen. And he talked about having an outlier poll, right, from a prominent organization saying that Kamala Harris is going to win, even though the polls have been trending for a couple of weeks now in the direction of Donald Trump. Even so much that the Real Clear Politics average is now showing Donald Trump ahead for the first time in history. All right. So you have to have a prominent poll come out from a prominent pollster, supposedly, who basically just says, oh, yeah, Kamala's going to win. All right. And then, of course, you have the story from the mainstream media saying, oh, Kamala Harris is actually do better than she has been. All right. You have all these things coming together that say, yeah, possible shenanigans on election day because you have these outlier stories that say, see, we got it right. Even though everybody else got it wrong, we got it right this time. Okay. And that's how something you can kind of look forward to and say, oh, there's a possibility of some type of voter integrity issue. Stephen Thomas, if you vote, he's going to jail. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Honestly, have you noticed how over the last couple of weeks, dare I say a month even, there has been zero mention about any of Donald Trump's trials? I mean, really, there's been zero mention of any of that. And that's kind of, for me, that's kind of amazing because they've been harping on it so much. You can tell, holy crap, Killbot 2000, $20, good work, keep it up, bro, Trump 2024. Killbot, if I had a song to play right now, I don't have any of those fancy bezels or anything like that. If I had a song to play for you right now, I would. If I had explosions on the screen, I would, because you are officially my first super chat. And it's for $20. I want to say thank you, sir. I appreciate that so much. I don't think I'm worth it. This is probably the most humbling thing I have ever had right now. I am very grateful for that. So thank you very much, Killbot 2000. America, America, MAGA, MAGA, vote Trump, get out there, get your family, get your friends, get your siblings, get your parents, get out there and vote for Donald Trump. We can save America today. Now, what was I talking about? Let's see. Yeah, if you vote illegally, you're going to jail. And then, of course, response here from Stephen Thomas, if you vote legally, he's going to jail. And yeah, so as I was mentioning, we haven't heard anything. We have not heard anything about any of Donald Trump's trials because I think the vast majority of people recognize it as blatant lawfare against Donald Trump, right? Blatant lawfare. We all see that, oh, when you have those 34 misdemeanors that somehow become felons, or felonies rather, in New York City, yeah, okay, that's lawfare. Obviously, no one else has ever been charged for simply maybe having a different verification of your amounts of how much your property is worth than maybe the bank. And of course, if the bank is allowed to verify how much they think you're worth and you both come together and settle on the amount you're going to be loaned, and then the money loaned is all paid back and no one complains about it, that is clearly lawfare. Okay. And then, of course, coming after Donald Trump for hush money, right? Hush money, which, by the way, is not illegal, except for apparently when Donald Trump does it. Okay. And then, of course, you have, of course, the allegations of assault on that crazy lady. Her name escapes me right now. But basically, a couple of things about her. Remember, it took her years to even say these things happened. And then she couldn't remember the day, the month, or the year it actually occurred, right? The supposed assault. And then, of course, she couldn't remember the layout of the dressing room. It was all wrong, according to Bergdorf, whatever it is. They actually verified that, yeah, the way she described the dressing rooms, that's not how we were set up. And of course, the outfit she was wearing at the time, the outfit she described herself as wearing, wasn't created yet, right? So she was wrong there again. And also the simple fact that she had accused over 20 other individuals of assault. 20. I mean, lady, you got to stop walking around the woods at night. I mean, it shouldn't happen. What the heck kind of life are you living where you have 20 other people you've accused of the same thing as Donald Trump? But of course, that doesn't matter to anybody. She's going to go ahead and get some millions of dollars, unless, of course, Trump wins on appeal. All right. So, yes, if you vote illegally, you should go to jail. And yes, Trump actually, and they haven't, like I said, the media has not mentioned any of this in quite some time. The media hasn't mentioned that, yeah, Donald Trump is under all this lawfare. Right. And also, of course, don't forget down in Georgia with Fani Willis. I still call her Fanny. Right. Don't forget down there where, of course, she's under investigation herself. Her case is falling apart, and it's basically dead in the water. And, of course, Jack Smith also as well. Everything's on pause until after the election because of election interference possibilities, etc. So I just wanted to check out this headline here, or rather the trending topic of Blue Wave 2024. Dan Rather, what does this old bones have to say? It's astounding that a former president was proven in a court of law to have committed sexual assault. It wasn't proven. He was alleged civilly. All right, not criminally, civilly. And as I just pointed out, there were several flaws in that case. And by the way, everything I just mentioned about the time she couldn't pin down, about the outfit she was wearing, about the whatchamacallit, the layout of the dressing room, about the fact that 20 other people, she'd accuse them. None of that was allowed to be brought forth in court because it would have, possibly hurt her image and made it really hard to prove that Donald Trump did something that, quite possibly and quite probably he didn't do. Yeah, and the media forgot about it a week later because it's just one of the 1,000 horrific things he's done. Thank you, Dan Rather, you partisan hack, for coming out of the cobwebs and putting your foot down. The only good clip about him is when he's talking to Brian Stelter. Oh, I should try to pull that up. Easier to explain. He's talking to Brian Stelter and saying, oh, CNN couldn't survive without Donald Trump. Your ratings would be in the dumpster without Donald Trump. That was a huge own on Brian Stelter. Oh, man, that was hilarious. So that was the one good thing he had there. Jennifer Williams. Some counties in Pennsylvania have already extended voting hours to 10 p.m. because of how much of a disaster everything is right now. I hope it's only the Republican counties, all right? The Democrat counties who aren't having issues, they don't need it. It would have to be the Republican counties. And I hope people stay in line or come back, get out there and vote, please. Pennsylvania is, I think, the key. If Trump takes Pennsylvania, I think he wins the election handily, right? As I have over here in my own personal prediction. Is that still up there? Yeah, I think that Trump, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, I think Trump takes all those. Arizona, I think Trump wins those, and we got 281. All right. I hope it's a better interaction. I hope it's something that is more better like this 312 that the most accurate pollsters, Atlas Intel, is predicting. I hope that happens. But, that's just my own personal prediction. All right. So back here at the Blue Wave, we're just checking out what this is trending. What's happening right here with the Blue Wave. Oh, yeah. Who are you voting for, Daddy? You. So you can have men in your bathroom and you can have men in your sports and men in your changing room. Yeah, that's a real good, proud father there. Way to protect your kids. Yeah, good job there on that one. All right. Other trending topics. I want to get back to a news story in a second, but I love to see what's trending on Twitter just to see, what's actually happening right now. And we're at that time of day where, we're getting some news stories, nothing finalized for another, 5 hours probably. But, things are happening. Oh, let's see. Kill Me just ate Mr. Mayor's lunch. Buttigieg. Oh, man. Buttigieg, the guy who wasn't at work for basically 2 months, and no one noticed that he was gone. That, of course, is Buttigieg. Let's check this out. I want to see this story happening right now. If it'll load. Issues with the loading.
Tariff that'll add $4,000 for a typical family. She's going to do
I think you're right on the tariffs, but he's not looking to do a tax cut for the rich. He's looking to. Rich. He's looking to continue.
Haven't heard anything. Look, we know the fundamentals of the differences in economic vision. He's going to do tax cuts for the rich, and he's going to do this import tax, this tariff, that'll add $4,000 for a typical family. She's going to do a child
right on the tariffs, but he's not looking to do a tax cut for the rich.
Cut.
He's looking to continue the current tax.
Oh, of course he is. I mean, well, yeah, he's looking to renew his. Yeah, he's looking to renew his tax cuts for the rich.
No, the people that benefited most from tax reform of 2018 were the middle class. The corporate tax rate affected
most
everyone.
of that benefit proportionally went to the wealthy. And let's be clear, of the economic promises that he made, right? He broke most of them. He broke his promise to do 6% economic growth. He broke his promise to do an infrastructure bill. He failed to deliver that. Most of his predictions don't come true. He said if Democrats won 4 years ago, there would be a stock market crash. Of course, the stock market doing better today than it was when he was president. But he did keep his promise to cut taxes for the rich.
It's very interesting. The average price of everyday goods is up 20% since the administration, which you're a part of but not representing here today. The average price increase is over 7%. Real hourly wages have fallen 1.6% under Biden. Real average hourly wages have rose 7.3% on the Trump term. So the average new car, you're in Michigan, is $47,000. It was $40,000 when Donald Trump was in office.
Yeah, and of course, higher prices are hurting. That's why we don't need the Trump income or import tax that'll add $4,000 for families. Look, Donald Trump left office with the worst jobs record since Herbert Hoover. This administration has created the most jobs of any modern. Well, let's remember, though, before the pandemic.
All right, yeah, just jumping in there. Yeah. Before the pandemic, what was happening? Everything was going gangbusters. We were all-time low for unemployment, all-time high for creating new jobs. I mean, things were amazing. Under Donald Trump, you had in just 4 short years, or just 3 if you count out the COVID time, all right, an increase for your average American income, $7,000, right? Under Obama previously, it was $3,000 over 8 years. So Trump's economy was amazing. And then, of course, to come out and actually say that, oh, he had the worst jobs record. Yeah, when you count all the jobs that were forcibly shut down by Fauci and California and Michigan and New York, all those jobs that were just wiped out, right, because of leftism, because of craziness. And I wish, this is one thing I do fault Donald Trump for, actually, is believing Fauci and allowing the government to actually shut down, right? Or rather enforcing the whole country to shut down, right? It shouldn't have happened, okay? But the simple fact that you're coming in and straight up lying about, oh, Biden, Harris have created more jobs. No, you got all those bounce back jobs. And every single time you have jobs numbers come out, right, every 3 months when they release those new jobs numbers, it's always under the estimates. And then, of course, a couple months later, you always have to revise those numbers down even further. And most recently, just last week, it came out that, oh, you're expected to have 112,000 new jobs created. And how many were created? 12. And I still expect those numbers to be, brought down as well in another month. Okay. When was it? It was just last month, or rather the last cycle, where they omitted 1 million jobs. They said, oh, 1 million jobs we said we created. We actually didn't create those. Right? It didn't happen. But here's Pete Buttigieg saying, oh, under Donald Trump, you're going to be worse off than you were his first term. Somehow magically that's going to happen. So even though we have all this inflation, so Kilmeade's out here pointing out, yeah, all this stuff costs more. This price is up. Cars now $7,000 more per car in Michigan. And what's Buttigieg saying? Oh, under Donald Trump, it'll be even worse because we're going to add in the tariffs. And the whole tariffs thing is, it's really interesting because I used to be of the mind that, yeah, adding a tariff, it makes common sense that, yeah, the price is going to go up. But you hear Donald Trump talk about it, and don't forget, he actually did enact the tariffs that Joe Biden kept in place on China, okay? Donald Trump's whole purpose of enacting these tariffs, it didn't raise our costs. It actually worked. It created more revenue. It created more money for, American workers, right? It was amazing. I thought for sure, yeah, the price of everything's going to go up, and it didn't. And also Trump is now talking about putting these massive tariffs on all these companies who are going to build their stuff elsewhere and sell it here. And he's saying, you know what? These massive tariffs are going to incentivize them to build their companies here and to build the products here. And that to me sounds like a pretty good plan as well, right? Doesn't it? That sounds great. And I will believe him on this 100% because I was wrong. I thought tariffs were a bad idea. And it turned out they were a great idea. So great that they had to be kept by the Biden-Harris administration. And here Pete Buttigieg is talking about, oh, the tariffs are going to be awful. All right. It worked out phenomenally well. All right. That's what I'll say about the tariffs. But also Donald Trump makes the good point of, we have to have the reciprocity, right? If they have a certain tariff on us to sell stuff into their country, we're going to do the same thing to you. All right. And that, of course, will probably lower tariffs across the board and allow more of our goods to be sold in other places around the world, which basically they're not allowed to be sold right now because they're stolen by IP in China and places build their own products. And of course, that's called protectionism. And that's what we have to have a little bit of for ourselves to have, of course, a successful, thriving economy. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think we should, not be forced to outsource things that we don't make here. It's just kind of an incentive to bring stuff back to America. And the tariffs are a protection for our working class because otherwise we can't compete with the slave labor prices they have in China, that they have in India. All right. It's something we kind of, will we end up paying a little bit more? Possibly. But will it be more like the first time around when Donald Trump was president? That's what I believe. And yeah, watching Pete Buttigieg, suck sand here is good. If it'll load.
Right. It was before the pandemic that there was a manufacturing recession under Trump. Right now, more factories are being built in America than any time since before I was
Mayor,
born. Now look, the world experienced inflation.
The manufacturing recession is in your
Trump
head.
manufacturing
It never happened.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Trump manufacturing. Oh, yeah, okay. Look it up on PolitiFact. Look up the fact check. And
let's do that.
And then tell me. Maybe you can bring it on screen right now.
Can I ask you this?
Because there was a
Michigan
Trump manufacturing.
Well, this is exciting, right? Thanks for watching my screen load.
Recession.
Mr. Mayor, Michigan matters a lot.
Look it up.
That's why you're there, right? How much? Did the EV
I live here, but yeah.
How much did the
maybe I have to
EV
come back to this
mandate
story because this is not
hurt
working out.
the Kamala Harris quest to be the next president?
Well, first of all, the statement that there is an EV mandate is a lie. You can buy a gas car right now if you want one. You can buy an EV car. You can buy an EV car if you want one. And
yeah, I guess I got to move on to something else. Sorry, this looked like a good one, but we are not
make it
cooperating
cheaper
right now.
As long as you want. Now,
yeah, we're all professionals around here. But we're all, I mean, me.
Goal
one-man show
with the tax supports. And by the way, you.
Yeah, all right, that's enough of you, Kilmeade. All right, maybe I better shut that down altogether. Yeah, it's bad when even the tab won't close. All right, let's try this. Let's get a little bit more of this Rogan Musk interview going. And let me try to find some more current news.
Is there any argument against this? Has anybody tried to debate this? Has anybody tried to say that this is nonsense, this is a conspiracy? Has anybody made any sort of a rational argument?
The left actually, interestingly, does not want to pick up much on this argument because the more attention the more you look at it, the more obviously it is true. Because you just say like, well, are the numbers correct? Are there really this many illegals that have been imported into swing states? Yes. They haven't just walked across the border. They've been flown in airplanes.
Yeah. Using a shipping app.
Yes.
Yeah.
They made an app.
Well, the app always existed, but it used to be for people coming over here, like shipping with goods, so they could track you while you're in America, so you could legally be here, they know where you are. And then they changed it to allow that app to schedule illegal aliens to come across the border.
Yes.
Asylum seekers.
Yes.
Come on in.
Yes.
Oh, you have an app. And you fly people in.
They're literally being flown in to the swing states. And so the reason that I think the left doesn't want to push back on this is because the more attention this gets, the more people will realize it is true.
Yeah, it is true.
That's why they don't. That's why they're just pretending that they're pretending I'm not saying anything, but I'm like, yo, they're literally flying vast numbers of illegals who are then beholden to the Democrats. And sometimes I get the rebuttal of people. We'll say like, well, you know, these illegals are they don't have the same social values as the Democrat Party because they're like more socially conservative. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the point. If you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that their primary thing is staying in the country and getting their friends and family in, and then the Democrats give them all these benefits, like tons of benefits, more benefits than than citizens, literally.
Yeah.
They're beholden to the Democrats for all these benefits. They want to get their friends and family in, which the Democrats support and the Republicans don't, so they vote Dem. And you can look empirically at California and say, like, did they vote Republican or Democrat in California? Oh, they voted Democrat. Big time.
Well, Reagan gave them amnesty in the 1980s, and that
86.
changed the state basically, except for Arnold, changed the state entirely blue.
Yes.
And Arnold was an exception because he was like a socially liberal, famous guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, didn't.
Well, that's actually a pretty good point that was brought up there by Elon. There's a reason why, you know, the mainstream media, right, the leftist media, they don't talk about flying people in, right? They just don't talk about it. And that's because it's not popular. When people start to see exactly what's happening, they're like, well, this doesn't make any sense, right? That's why you have so many videos of people in the black community saying, yeah, illegal immigration actually hurts our communities. And that's why you have these, you know, large number of black supporters for Donald Trump, which is not normal, right? Normally you have, you know, 5% black support for the Republican candidate. Donald Trump's upwards of 20. We'll have to see what the final numbers are, of course. But this is exactly what's happening. When people see what's going on, they all just say collectively, it doesn't make any sense. Why in the world are we doing this?
Didn't really impose any radical restrictions on any of the people that were going to vote Democrat in the first place. The whole thing is just, it's bizarre to watch play out because it just seems like this can't be actually what's happening. Did you see my conversation with Fetterman about it?
Yeah.
He was completely in denial about it. I don't think there's that level of organization. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Just because you can break it down. So like, are any of these numbers wrong? Because we got these numbers from Homeland Security government.gov. Okay.
Right.
So we got it from the .gov website. Has the government reported these numbers incorrectly? No, they have not. Those numbers, if anything, are low. So they have in fact flown vast numbers of illegals to swing states.
Yeah.
Bypassing the border entirely. And so that is factually true. Then you say like, well, what is their probable voting pattern? Overwhelmingly Democrat into swing states. And then, well, but do the Democrats actually want to fast track them for citizenship? Yes, they do. You can see Chuck Schumer on TV saying at a rally this year was saying he wants to fast track and make all 11 million or however many, I believe his quote was, citizens as soon as possible. So the goal is they are fast tracking citizenship as quickly as possible, so they whether one thinks it's cheating or not, it won't matter because they will be fully able to vote.
And for people on the left,
this is actually happening. I invite people to rebut this and show me where I am wrong. Please do so.
No, they can't.
They can't.
They can't
because it's true.
Well, what's scary to me is that there's people that are on the left, like people that were Bernie Sanders supporters, for example.
Yeah,
like
Bernie got screwed with talk about undermining democracy. Bernie should have won the nomination,
exactly.
And they stole it from him and gave it to Hillary.
Exactly. That was what I was going to bring up. Like they control the primary process.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you have a Democratic primary, it's not democratic. We just saw that.
Yeah, so as we remember, the Democrats are in complete control of the primary process. All right, don't get me wrong. Republicans have, of course, controls and guidelines, etc. But the Democrats have the super delegates, and that's why Bernie Sanders lost. So even though he won many places, he was more popular, he had all the momentum, Hillary Clinton somehow ended up with the vast majority of the superdelegates, thus earning her her nomination for the Democrats all the way back in 2016. Okay, but the better point that Elon Musk brings up there is that, yes, we are flying in illegals. All right, and of course, the fast track, as we call the great voter replacement theory, is you get as many millions of illegals as you can, maybe, I don't know, say 20 over a 3.5-year period, and then you legalize all of them, and then you fast track them for citizenship, and all of a sudden you have the permanent overclass of voters, and America becomes like California, all right? A place that was red back in the 80s, which is now permanently blue, because Ronald Reagan was actually tricked, following that whole story, to basically give amnesty to all of the illegals, which resulted in California becoming a permanent blue state, and a huge loss for the Electoral College for the Republicans for the foreseeable future. Okay, so that is exactly what's happening. That's what they are trying to build here in America. And Elon Musk makes a great point there about all of that. And let's see over here with just these closing arguments. I want to see this from Ben Shapiro and Bill Maher discussing Donald Trump.
Gurus. Thanks, gurus. Business owners and crazy election season, there are going to be a lot of uncertainties, but one thing is certain.
All professionalism
things will be different in
2020.
To 511 today. Message and data rates
apply. Another ad read from Rocket Bunny? Man. Come on, Bill Maher.
I wanted to keep that one. Although I do still have that Cream album. Okay, here's the deal. Listen up. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your...
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that wait.
It's mostly about the goings-on here at Club Random. Find it at billmaher.substack.com. I'll see you there. And I appreciate your reaching out about my Chapel Roan editorial.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
But it means, a lot to me because...
Am I allowed to shit on like the other guests you've had on the show or not?
Of course.
Really? Okay, so Bill Burr was a fucking asshole on this show.
My show?
Yeah.
That was so long ago.
I know, but it pissed me off. Really, it was quite terrible.
Okay, they were discussing Trump. Looks like they cut after the ad read and maybe mixed off the end of their conversation. So that was a whole lot of waiting for absolutely nothing, all right? I did find something I do want to comment. We'll see if it pulls up. We're over on CNN. I hate going to their website. It is nothing but ads all the time. We've got some hot internet searching action. All right, we got Frank Luntz. I didn't click on anything. Thank you, CNN. My goodness. All right, we got Frank Luntz over here. Pollster extraordinaire for the left. Made his bones on Fox News, or rather I should say got famous on Fox News, and now handles his wares around the country to many leftist
We're
organizations.
hearing, and I know this is all about sometimes what a campaign is projecting, but the Harris campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, says they believe they have multiple pathways to 270. So is this, in your opinion, the Harris campaign projecting optimism, or do you see multiple paths as well?
They do have multiple paths, but every path goes through either Pennsylvania or Michigan. There is no way that either candidate can win without at least one of those two states. It's absolutely necessary. We are watching these accusations on the ground. It's very concerning because it tells me that we're going to have the same disruption that we had in 2020, an election that was clearly decided. There was a winner and a loser, and I'm praying that we don't have the same thing this time. But you can already see it, and I'm watching social media very carefully. I believe that there's a very effective effort to challenge every one of these accusations. And that I'm glad that we're not talking about the polling, because the polling is now done. It's now just about the voting and the counting of the voting and the verification of that count. And so far, it doesn't appear like any of these are grounded in any kind of fact. But we know that there will be attempts at interference. And it's just a real tragedy that here's the greatest country on the face of the earth with the greatest electoral system and the strongest democracy, and it seems to be going through this for the second election in a row.
Yeah, I share those sentiments, Frank. I do wonder what you think the most likely path is for Vice President Harris and for former President Trump to get to 270. Where do you see the likelihood of some of those states landing?
The key for Trump is the Latino vote in Arizona and Nevada. And what he said a week ago about what the comedian said at the Madison Square Garden event, the stupid comments and the fact that they were allowed to stand may hurt Trump.
That's enough
Probably
of that.
not enough.
So a couple of good points brought up there. So first, as far as Trump's path, as I've mentioned, I think that Trump's most likely to win Pennsylvania of all those blue wall states. All right. I don't think Michigan will happen because Michigan is corrupt beyond all belief, and they have no guardrails to get rid of fraudulent votes, as was already pointed out in this channel, in this very stream a little while ago. Okay. I think Wisconsin, they're blue because, hey, they voted in Tim Walz. So why would they vote for Donald Trump now? Of course, he's not popular. They don't like him. Sure. But it gives their mindset. They're going to probably go for Kamala over Trump. That's my belief. Okay. And Nevada changed the voting laws. The Supreme Court came out and said you can receive ballots after the election day that have no postmarks. All right. So I don't think Nevada is going to go blue. All right. Even though previously I thought it was going to go red, or rather, I do think Nevada's going to go blue. I think previously it was going to go red until the Nevada Supreme Court stepped in and said, hey, we could accept all these votes after Election Day. As soon as I said that, it's like, it's done. Nevada's gone. I hope I'm wrong about all of that. And I hope this mirrors, of course, what we've been seeing over here from Atlas Intel, the most accurate pollster, according to the last couple of election cycles, with Trump's 312. I hope this turns out to be the case, but I don't know if that will be. I think that Trump definitely needs to win Pennsylvania. It's the most likely to me out of all of these states. It has the biggest working class, and Trump does really well with working class men specifically. So I think that's the most likely. And if he wins that, I think Kamala Harris loses. I think it's over for the rest of them. I think that's going to be the big win. Okay, so with that happening there, the other thing that Frank Luntz was starting to bring up at the end was the joke made by I can't remember his name, the guy from Kill Tony, yeah, Tony Henchfield, yeah, there we go, got it. Context, that's what matters. So yeah, the joke about, Puerto Rico being a garbage country because they obviously have some garbage issues there right now. Okay, so that was the joke he made, and somehow saying that that's going to affect the Puerto Ricans, the Latino vote that is large in some of these counties and areas, etc., is ridiculous. People who are not dyed-in-the-wool leftists know how to take a joke for what it is. Now, should he have been at the Trump rally? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but that's what he does. When you have somebody come out and speak, you basically sign on for what they're going to say, okay? So I'm not going to discount that, or rather, I'm not going to say that that was wrong. I'm not going to say that it was bad. I'm going to say it was a joke, it was funny, and most people will recognize it as such. And if they can't recognize it as a joke, if they really have to flip their vote, then chances are they weren't going to vote for Donald Trump in the first place. All right, that's where I stand on that. Okay, so there's Frank Luntz talking about what is he seeing on Twitter? What's he seeing online? What are the comments happening right now? And as he mentioned, Pennsylvania, right off the bat, already having some issues, right? They got the wrong polls, they got the wrong ballots, they got the wrong voting mechanism, right? Things are backed up, they're not working, they've extended hours, as was pointed out in the chat by Jennifer Williams, right? There's all types of problems and shenanigans happening. And of course, that lays the groundwork for people to say, this is weird. This shouldn't happen in our elections. And could it possibly maybe affect the vote? Yeah. And I hate to see it too, right? You'd think these places, right, these voting precincts who have one job basically to do, and that is to make sure that the voting runs smoothly, you'd think they could just spend every year making it better and better, so the process gets smoother and smoother. But instead, we seem to have the reverse. It's always the reverse, and it seems to always be in one direction, always towards the red states or the red districts to try to basically do voter suppression of the Republicans. So if we make these big, long 5-hour wait lines, people are going to leave. They're going to get out and say, you know what, I'll come back later. And then they may never do that. They may never get back out, or they have to get back to work and their shift won't allow them to vote at any other time. This is exactly what's happening. And that's what Frank Luntz there is referring to, quite rightly, actually, surprisingly enough, right? This is what we don't want to see in our elections. They should be transparent. They should be easy to track. And of course, there should be a mechanism for guardrails to make sure that illegal votes aren't counted, that they don't happen. Killbot back again. Hot internet search action. That's what we come here for, right? Not just for my pithy commentary, but also for the hot internet search action. Oh goodness. Let's see. We're probably going to be winding down pretty soon. I've been going for 2 hours, and all the big guys are going to be out there, taking that market share. Capitalism, right? I'm just a little guy out here trying to make a name for myself. So let me see if there's anything else of interest happening, and let's jump back into, I guess, the Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, a little bit here.
We saw it with Bernie. We saw it with Kamala. That like a week before Biden, was summarily fired. He was posting that he's in it for the long term. He's going.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not giving up. And the next thing you know, Sunday afternoon, they're posting on X that he's resigned from the race,
which is
and his staff didn't even know. Like, they're reading it on the X platform. Okay, that's how they learned about it.
What do you think happened there? How did they do that?
Because he's clearly just not in charge, obviously.
They could have used the 25th Amendment, right?
Fake president.
But they would have to admit that there was a certain period of time where they knew that he was mentally compromised.
Yes.
And so they made this decision to not do that.
Well, the weird thing is that the president's supposed to be the boss.
Right.
And yet he's obviously not the boss.
Right. So who's running the country? If she's busy campaigning, she's so busy she can't do anything except Saturday Night Live. She did that. She's so busy. She's constantly campaigning. How could you be paying attention to international relations?
Yeah.
How could you be paying attention to the economy? How could you be paying attention to any of those things? How do you have the time? You can't.
Yeah. I mean, Biden being the president's supposed to be the CEO, the chief guy, and he was commander in chief. But it just obviously that Biden was not. He was just a puppet. And when the various puppet masters decided that the puppet was no longer useful, they just tossed out the puppet and then got a new puppet with Kamala. I mean, Kamala can't.
So this, of course, is the most interesting idea here. It's basically the fact that it's true for the entire Biden administration, right? You have Pete Buttigieg, who we just heard from, basically disappearing for 2 weeks, or rather 2 months, I should say, and nobody noticed he was gone. You had the Department of Defense head, who basically had a surgery, and he was gone for an extended period of time, and nobody noticed he was gone either. And you have, of course, Joe Biden, who's constantly checked out. He's gone. He's not around. And you have, of course, Kamala Harris on the campaign trail. She's not doing anything. And yet somehow everything's still operating as if it was run by a horrible leftist communist regime. All right. And that tells you everything you need to know about the deep state, everything you need to know about the people in power, right? The unelected bureaucrats that actually run the nation, and the very same people who don't want Donald Trump to come in and get rid of all their jobs. That is basically what we're seeing. It's the very same thing over and over and over again. This is what we are dealing with. Okay. But yeah, I mean, Elon Musk points it out right there. Somebody who's the head of the nation, who's basically the CEO, he's in charge of running it. And if he's not there, you would probably notice, right? But in the case of the leaders of the free world, no one can even tell. No one can even tell that Biden is on vacation for the umpteenth time. He's hanging out on the beach, right, taking a nap. No one even notices. Okay, and that just is basically the state of our current administration. That's where we're at, and that's why so many people are frustrated and sick and tired of all this stuff. Okay, now I do want to get back to that Pete Buttigieg. I don't know if it's going to happen, but back on CNN, I did find something else I want to discuss, and this was interesting. It's basically the most important voter issues. Women's rights and inflation are the top issues, okay? So as we all know, it's going to be inflation, it's going to be the economy tied together, really kind of the same thing, and it's going to be immigration, right? Those are the big issues. Women's rights is really something that is down the list, like maybe 5 to 13, depending on what poll you're looking at. So I wanted to watch this video because they love to highlight women's rights as a cudgel to hit the Republican Party with, even though it's not.
4 children overall, and women's rights is pretty important to them and my daughters. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional about that. I didn't think that I was going to do that, but just their bodies, their choice type of a mentality.
I think women's rights are very important especially for being a biracial African American. I stand for everyone behind me. This is for women's rights, and I think it's important. My mom raised me very well, and this is really important.
For me, it's that my daughter grows up in a world that was so much more like mine.
And what are your top issues?
Women's rights, women's reproductive rights is a huge one. And for me, just what we're going to do in the economy overall. The inflation has just made it so you have to decide, are you going to buy hamburger, meat, or chicken because of what's on sale?
Hindus in India.
Yeah, so women's rights issues. It's ironic seeing the father sitting there talking about, my daughter's women's rights. Yeah, the right for men to be in her bathroom, the men to be in her dressing room, the men to be in her changing room, the men to be in her sports, the men to possibly injure her in sports, right? The men to take away all of the scholarships, all of the accolades, all of the prize money, all of the tournaments, all of the trophies, right? The men to take away all that stuff. So yeah, that's why I'm voting Kamala Harris, and that's why women's rights are so important to me. It's ridiculous. All right, it's totally ridiculous and backwards. And we all know the number one issue, of course, is the economy. All right, is it bad enough for you to actually say, you know what, I'm going to change my mind and vote for the opposite party? All right, am I going to change my mind and vote for Donald Trump because it is that bad and there's no plan to fix it? Remember, Kamala Harris's only plan to fix any of this is to go after the price gougers, to go after the grocery stores who make that 1% to 3% profit margin. All right, they're the ones who we have to fix. So if you want your prices of groceries, I guess, to go down by 1%, maybe 2%, I guess talk to Kamala Harris. But if you want your prices to go down, maybe hopefully back to the 20% that was inflated over the Kamala Harris administration, maybe talk to Donald Trump. And of course, I have a good buddy. There's two stories, I guess. I have one buddy who's like, whenever these inflation prices happen, it never goes back to where it was. And I say, there's always that rising 2% every year because we have the Fed in control. We're not on the gold standard, etc., overpricing, all that stuff. Okay, so if you want inflation to really decrease, what do? You stop printing money. You create a whole bunch of new energy, right? You unleash natural gas and oil, and then you start overproducing all the products that are, of course, inflated. Okay, and that's why whenever you hear the argument about Joe Biden actually creates more oil than Donald Trump, right? On paper, yeah, you look at those numbers like, okay, it looks like on paper, yeah, the price, the amount of oil that's being produced under Biden looks like it's more than Donald Trump. However, has the price dropped? And the answer, of course, is no, the price has not dropped. And that's what makes me think someone's fudging the numbers, or we're selling off everything we're producing to other countries. All right. So one of those two things is probably happening, because when you overproduce, when production goes up, prices tend to come down, but they're not. And that's why Joe Biden, of course, is emptying out our strategic reserves to try to give himself a good face before the election. Although I'm not convinced he's trying to do that anymore because of all the blunders and gaffes he's been doing that have been hurting Kamala Harris these last couple of weeks. It makes me kind of wonder, is Joe Biden an insurgent? Is he trying to, sink the Kamala Harris campaign? Is he upset that they basically ousted him and replaced him with someone who was vastly, even for Joe Biden, less qualified than him? That's always a possibility, right? That's where we're at. And yet to see people actually come up and say, it looks like, yeah, women's issues are my number one voting issue. And if you're only voting on women's issues, the right to an abortion, I'd say, why? Because chances are you live in a state already where you can get your abortion up and beyond 9 months. Okay, that's probably where you're at right now. Okay, and no one's stopping you from doing that, because all Donald Trump did is get it back to the states, and now the states will decide. Now, my own personal view on this, of course, is that I am pro-life. All right, do I believe in the exceptions of rape, incest, and life of the mother? Absolutely sure. Okay, but those are far and away less than 1% of all abortions. And so many abortions are now becoming later and later in term. And it's all basically, instead of being, safe, legal, and rare, as Bill Clinton used to say, it's now anytime, anywhere, upon demand. All right. And that is basically sickening because, and here's my, follow me with this. All right. If you agree, at the very least, you would have to say that we should not allow abortion up to the point where the child can feel pain whatsoever. At the very least. And according to my own research, I'm not a doctor, I'm just an angry teacher. All right. According to my own research, that seems to be about 12 weeks. I could be wrong on that. Okay. That seems to be about 12 weeks. That would be at least a compromise that you should be able to make with any reasonable person. All right. Once you hit that 12-week mark where there's a potential for the baby, and it is a baby, it is a separate life, it is a separate entity from the mother. All right. Once you hit that 12-week mark, then it seems perfectly reasonable for me to say, no, not going to happen, unless, of course, it's one of those exceptions. Although, honestly, once you hit that mark where the pain threshold exists, even then, possibly, maybe give birth to the baby and give it up for adoption. There's so many people out there. I mean, fostering is a big problem in America, but so many people want a newborn baby that would be so easy to find a mother and a father for a newborn baby in this country. And I think that would be the more humanitarian thing to do, right? Find that common ground. Even though I am personally pro-life, I would start by making a compromise on that position and then try to work backwards from that. But of course, the left, what did they do? They went full bore in California and New York, like abortions up to 9 months. And then, of course, you have, Ralph Northam saying, oh, put the baby on the table. If we've got a botched abortion, the baby's alive, put it on the table and make it comfortable until we decide whether or not to kill it. All right. And that, of course, is what you're kind of facing over there. All right. Music theory. Vote Trump to fix this country and give it the fighting chance our nation deserves. Amen to that music theory. I couldn't agree more. Get out there and vote. If you haven't done so already, please do so. Me, myself, personally, I get my mail-in ballot. I keep that. I destroy it myself, and I go vote early. All right. I love early voting. Election day, it's always crowded, and I'm like, you know what? I'll do the early voting. I'm a big fan of early voting, but I always vote in person. I just don't trust the mail system, if we all know about the shenanigans were happening there for some reason. Also, for music theory, vote common sense, vote Trump. I love the framing that Trump has been making, and that's basically to go ahead and say, you know what, the Republican Party, the Conservative Party, we are now the party of common sense, right? Because if you believe that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, if you believe that men should compete with women in women's sports, if you believe that, sending off millions of dollars to other places for foreign wars, right? If you believe all this stuff, then you don't have much common sense. All right, it just doesn't exist. All right, and that's why I love the framing that Donald Trump is giving there. And also music theory, she's down in Pennsylvania. I sure hope she's down in Pennsylvania. I hope she's down so far that you can see Willie Brown. Right, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that she is losing. I'm hoping that, Pennsylvania, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the Amish vote. They registered something like 100,000 Amish voters in Pennsylvania. How in the world can Trump lose with an extra 100,000 votes when it was so close last time, right? It was so close last time. All right. Add another 100,000 voters to the rolls, and all of a sudden, bam, there we are. All right. And of course, not to mention, if Pennsylvania was actually able to stop some shenanigans, right? Because we do have supposedly, lots of poll watchers on the ground, lots of lawyers ready to get involved. If Laura Trump, part of the RNC committee, actually did her job and they're ready to go, hopefully we can get a lot of this stuff stopped. Because in my mind, I'm picturing basically, you got a bunch of lawyers on standby who are retaining a bunch of police officers saying, hey, here's the law, we got to get involved. I mean, I don't know if that's the way it's going to happen. It probably isn't. It's just me being, optimistic. That's kind of what I'm envisioning. You have the poll watchers in there saying, hey, we got shenanigans. We have the lawyers coming in saying, hey, this is against the law. And they got them getting the cops to say, hey, stop it. But we will see. I hope it turns out this way. In Pennsylvania. All right. Let's get a little bit more of this Elon Musk, and let me peruse the news to see if there's any other stories that are of note.
Can't even talk. That you invited her on your show. I think the most damage that could possibly be done to a campaign is going on your show and seeing what she says in hours 2 and 3.
2 and 3 is when things get
2
spicy.
And 3. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God.
You can hide for 20
She's
minutes.
Gonna melt.
You can hide for 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just regurgitate talking points for, half an hour, maybe an hour, just where she's just saying like non sequiturs, but eventually she just runs out of non sequiturs.
Well, they wanted to limit it to an hour.
Exactly. That's why.
But I was thinking of doing it initially before Trump came here. First of all, when they found out that there was a rumor, I never announced that Trump was coming. What I was going to do is just release it. The way I like to do things, I don't like to tell anybody who's coming on. It'll get big no matter what. If Trump was on, it would have been huge. I'm like, just put it out there. People go crazy.
Yeah.
But he apparently, or someone from his organization, some loose lips, and then it got out. And so she contacted my management company, and her organization, her campaign contacted us and said, would Joe have her on? I said, yes. And they said, she wants you to fly to where she is, and she's only willing to do 45 minutes.
Only 40. I mean, that's
And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, no. So
Yeah.
I thought about doing it. I'm like, maybe I can get a sense. Maybe I could convince her. Maybe I could coax her into doing more time. I just wanted to talk to her.
Yes.
Well, I don't give a fuck what we talk about. We talk about
Yes.
recipes. I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
Just talk to me.
The things like you just can't like you can't just output bullshit non sequiturs for 3 hours.
Right.
But
You
for
have to
45
talk.
minutes you could do.
I thought maybe for 45 minutes I could get something out of it. But then when Trump came and did the 3 hours, I was like, you know what? It has to be like this. This is the only way.
To be fair, it's got to be like a three
And
hours.
it should be in this room.
Yes.
Because this room has like a history of people
This room has good
expressing
vibes,
themselves.
actually.
All right, yeah, that was
Output bullshit non sequiturs for 3 hours.
Joe Rogan, in his own words, talking about what went down with Kamala Harris. They wanted to do just a 45-minute interview where she can basically filibuster for 45 minutes. All right, she can talk about her same talking points over and over. She can talk about how she's, from a middle-class family and how her mom saved up to buy their first home, right? Which, by the way, is a lot better off than most middle-class families nowadays, right? Single income, buying a home for you and your daughters, etc. Great job, right? That's, but she can filibuster that for 45 minutes. Anybody pretty much could who's, good at public speaking and has something to say. All right. Does that really discount Kamala? It could. So yeah, she could filibuster and fill up that 45 minutes, but of course she's got to go to him. Joe Rogan being the biggest podcaster in the entire nation, and you're not going to do whatever you can to get on his show and deliver a message. And basically just shows that, yeah, she was afraid of sitting down non-scripted for 3 hours without her handlers, just filling her, ears full of stuff, right? Definitely nothing in this ear over here, right? She just didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. She would have sounded like a complete moron, right? Would have sounded like an idiot. And she would have had to go back to those same old stories over and over again that we've all already heard. And the fact that she has no ideas and nothing to say new that would help the country whatsoever, right? That's exactly where we would have been, right? Long story short. Okay, last bit. Let's go ahead and see what is trending. I'll look at my final prediction again, and I think we'll call it. I've been going now for this is my longest live stream I've ever done. Looks like 2.5 hours. So awesome. Thank you very much for everybody following along there. What today's election feels like, Elon Musk. The first time I saw that weird backwards landing of the rocket, I was just like, that's got to be fake. That's got to be on a string. They just rewound the video. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see that. All right, what do we have here? The Dixville notch. Yeah, that was funny. We already talked about that. Babylon Bee, always good for a laugh. The Alexa fiasco. Oh, man, all the stuff going on about the AI, how you can ask a question to your AI about Donald Trump. It's like, oh, I don't talk about politics. Ask a question to your AI about Kamala. It's like, she's the best person ever. All right. Let's actually listen to this. Looks like they have maybe Alexa in Kamala Harris's voice.
Do you like your Amazon Echo, but wish its answers were more confusing? Introducing Amazon Echo Calm Alexa Edition. This great new device will just give you a long, rambling answer to anything you ask.
Calm Alexa, what's the weather like today?
Weather is big. Weather is exciting. And did you know that files are stored in the cloud? Your files, they're all up there, up in the cloud. In the cloud. So the climate is changing, and that.
Oh, I love Babylon Bee. They're hilarious. Oh my goodness. I was hoping they'd have actually like a voice impersonator of her, but instead it was just the Alexa voice. Okay, what do we got here? James O'Keefe exposed an NGO telling illegal migrants to vote. Oh, yeah, big surprise. Is that a shocker to anybody? No, not at all whatsoever. This is a swing state. They're telling people to vote. Philadelphia City, Pennsylvania, whether you have a social security number or not, you can vote yes. And if Philadelphia, of course, is anything like Michigan, where there is no chain of custody, once those votes are in the system, they are in and they are counted, and there's nothing you can do about it. No amount of lawsuits, no amount of interpretation of correct Pennsylvania voting law is going to change that, as Donald Trump proved back in 2020. Okay?
Information that yes, in fact, she can vote with nothing but an ITIN number.
Yo sí puedo votar, aunque no sea residente ni ciudadana. Sí.
And then we went into the city commissioner's office to speak to the man who works there, working for the city government, confirming that you only need to be a resident of Philadelphia.
But when I say resident, that means of the entire United States. But you're just worried about Philadelphia. Oh, you don't care about anything else. You just want them.
Right. So here, of course, flouting federal law. You have to be an American citizen to vote in our federal elections. And people on the left, in my own, watching my videos, sometimes they come out and say, oh, That never happens, right? You have to be a citizen, right? This is not going to. People break the law all the time. That's why we have guardrails, all right? If we weren't worried about the law being broken, we wouldn't have police. So if we weren't worried about our elections being stolen, then we wouldn't have rules and guidelines, which of course leftist-leaning cities always like to get rid of. Okay, so of course here we have people saying, oh, you don't have to be a you don't have to be a citizen of this country to vote in our federal election for president. And of course, all of this started with the simple idea that many of these leftist cities, California, etc., you could start voting if you're an illegal immigrant in our local elections. That's totally fine. And of course, that gets them into the system, that gets them the IDs they need, and it gets them all the locations, etc. And now all of a sudden, bam, you're voting in federal elections. And that's where we're at, right? Why would an illegal immigrant have an ITIN number? I mean, maybe that's how we do it for, guest workers, etc. But are they in fact guest workers? Are they here for a limited amount of time? They go back to their own country? It doesn't sound like it to me, right? But that's where we're at right now. All right, what else is going on here? Ohio's looking good, of course. Trump dancing. Let's enjoy Trump dancing for a little bit. Not for too long though, because I don't want to get a copyright strike. So playing a song in the background. Oh, goodness. Oh, as we mentioned, yeah, the Amish, mentioned them a couple of times. A huge surge of registration for the voters of the Amish community, like to the tune of 100,000. So I'm like I said, I think Pennsylvania is the most likely to go for Donald Trump out of that blue wall set of states. Love it, Cybertruck. The Cybertruck is honestly one of the ugliest cars I've ever seen in my life, until I saw an all-black Cybertruck driving on the freeway, and that looked kind of cool. Right, the all-black, it worked. In the silver-black trim, not my favorite, but the all-black, that actually worked. And Jade, how do I even say that? Justy Doge, 85. Trump, yes, indeed, Trump all the way. Right, 45-47, MAGA time, 100%. Get Trump back in office here. All right, so I'm not seeing anything new necessarily. New Hampshire just popped up trending. Let's see what's happening there. New Hampshire is one of those surprise places where Trump was polling pretty well. But let's see what we have. That's a good sign. Say no to communism. Oh, that's the best. Oh my gosh, this Lily Tang lady, her takedown of her millionaire opponent, who's a leftist, of course. It seems like they're all very well-to-do, right? So she's actually a survivor of the Communist Party, escaped here from China. When the government creates a problem, then they blame it on other things. Then they offer bigger government solutions to give you more printed money, then inflation goes up more. It's a vicious circle. There you go. See? Economics is not that difficult. People like to pontificate and make it seem like everything is so hard to understand. And it's not. It's all pretty easily boiled down. So what are we seeing here? Why is New Hampshire trending? I'm not seeing why. Long line in New Hampshire. Okay, so record turnout in where? New Hampshire. Everybody votes, we win. MAGA. This is what we're taking back America. Looks like I sure hope so. Okay, let's get a little audio of that. Love hearing crowds roar, unless it's not.
Record turnout in my hometown of Ware today. Amazing. I've never seen line this long. I just voted. Yes, yeah.
All right, that is good news. Okay, so maybe this is why New Hampshire is trending right now. People are out in force to vote. A massive line has formed for the J.D. Vance in Derry, New Hampshire. All right, so J.D. Vance had an event and a big line for it, but that was last night. Nothing about voting. Okay, so why is New Hampshire trending with 96.5 thousand posts? I don't know, other than possibly it's looking pretty good in those numbers. And that New Hampshire, by the way, is a state Donald Trump is not expected to win, but who the heck knows? All right, so let's see what's happening here with Massachusetts. Massachusetts is trending. So council member getting upset. This is good. Libertarian Party of Massachusetts. I want a government small enough to have neither the time nor the resources to conduct a 5-hour raid over a pet squirrel. Truer words were never spoken. And which person do you think is going to deliver that? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? All right, which one do you think is not going to have, you know, a whole bunch of officials, 10, I believe is what the number was, a whole bunch of cops show up and take care of a squirrel and a raccoon? All right, versus, you know, in New York where you have actual crime, actual illegal immigrants going around and murdering people and raping people, right? Here's where we have things that are actually happening, but instead, of course, we're going to take time out, money out, etc., to go investigate apparently an 8-acre property in upstate New York where apparently, you know, this couple who was apparently involved in OnlyFans stuff as well was also having a very successful Instagram account with the squirrel, etc., and all that stuff. So yeah, government overreach at its finest, or at its lowest, as you could say. Okay, so yeah, I can't see why Massachusetts is trending right now. I'm not seeing it. It might be wearing blue, but I voted red, straight down ticket. I doubt Massachusetts will turn red, but at least I could contribute to the popular vote. Very good, Boston mom. Awesome. So this possibly is why Massachusetts is trending right now. We have people talking about voting for Trump, increasing the popular vote, which of course, if Trump wins and wins the popular vote, that takes away the whole mandate argument that the leftist media loves to smear against Donald Trump, right? They waved that over his head for 4 years. Oh, yeah, sure, he won the electoral vote, but not the popular vote. That was Hillary Clinton. She was the rightful person, and somehow when we say it, it's okay to be election deniers. That, of course, is what's happening. Oh, my goodness. All right, so not much new there. All right. So I guess I have officially run out of things to talk about, right? Twitter is not giving me anything new. Of course, it's early in the day. Nothing is closed yet. None of the pontificates are out there talking about what they think is going to happen. We don't have anything special. And the only thing I really wanted to find was that Kilmeade clip again when he was talking. Let me see if I can pull that up. It was not loading for me. Kilmeade versus Buttigieg. I'd love to get on that a little bit. So let's see if the internet is working this time.
He's going to do tax cuts for the rich. Okay, look it up on PolitiFact. Look up the fact check. And,
let's do that.
And then tell me, maybe you can bring it on screen right now.
Can I ask you this?
Because there was a Trump manufacturing recession.
Mr. Mayor, Michigan matters a lot.
Look it up.
That's why you're there, right? How much did the EV
I live here, but yeah.
How much did the EV mandate hurt the Kamala Harris quest to be the next president?
Well, first of all, the statement that there is an EV mandate is a lie. You can buy a gas car right now if you want one. You can buy an EV car if you want one, and we'll help make it cheaper, as long as you want. Now, our goal with the tax supports, and by the way, you admit, right, that you can buy a gas car if you want right now, which means by definition there's no mandate.
But if he has a goal by 2035, California's gone. By 2035, New York's gone. And do you get an incentive,
you admit
Mr. Mayor?
that you don't have to. We're not making you buy this car or that car. Right now, the goal, and I got to be careful, right, because I can't get into the administration side. But what I'll say is, the goal has been to be about half and half by the end of the decade.
If you had your druthers,
here's the thing that every American,
how about Mayor Pete?
especially every Michigander, needs to.
Mr. If you had your druthers, would there be combustion engines?
If I had my druthers, every car would be made in America. Now, we know that EV technology is coming. Whether people are ready for it or not, it is coming. It's happening around the world. And
Okay, I don't know if Kilmeade just ate Mr. Mayor's lunch or not, but the simple idea is that, yes, the left is pushing for electric vehicles, and certain states like California, etc., are all having these mandates that they're going to have no more gas vehicles sold by a certain date. Okay. However, there's a problem here. People don't want electric vehicles. All right. The numbers just came out, I believe it was 2 months ago, where basically the percentage of people who are interested in electric vehicles is basically gone. All right. There's no more people interested in buying a new electric vehicle. And as a matter of fact, many people who actually bought an electric vehicle were actually thinking about going backwards. All right. And saying, you know what, I'm going to go back to a gas car. So basically, the people who are interested in electric vehicles, the numbers are already there. The market's kind of already set. All right, people don't want them. They don't want to convert to them. And also, electric vehicles are not any better for the environment. The amount of rare earth minerals you have to harvest, all right, is astounding. The amount of land you have to disrupt is amazing, all right? And of course, environmentalists like, oh yeah, go ahead. destroy those miles and miles and miles of square miles of land just to get those minerals so we can have our electric vehicles, as opposed to our internal combustion engines, which run quite efficiently. And we couldn't live without, by the way, right? There are no trains that are electric. Or, well, sorry, I should say no freight trains that are electric, right? We have subways, etc. I know. Okay. There's no freight trains that are electric. There's no farm equipment that's going to be useful that's electric. And of course, there's no mass consumer airplanes that are out there that are electric, all right? How are we going to travel in this country? How are we going to get goods and services delivered in this country? How are we going to survive in this country without gas engines? And that's why, like, oh, just by like 2035, 10 years is not that long of a time. All right. And don't forget, back in the 50s, they thought we'd have flying cars by now. And we kind of have some drone cars, but not a lot. But where is this technology going to come from? How much of the earth are you going to have to destroy and dig up to get it? All right. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, yeah, I wouldn't say here that, Kill Me just ate Mr. Mayor's lunch. But then again, there's still another minute left of this. But do I want to play anymore? It wasn't that great. All right. And the only other thing I'll mention is that in the startup of that, we did notice that Mayor Pete Buttigieg was actually saying that, yeah, we had basically a production dearth under Donald Trump. He was the one making the argument. He was the one who actually started the deregulation to allow production facilities to be built again in America. He wanted people to come back, all right? And Obama, if you recall, he just said, what are you going to do? You're going to wave a magic wand and bring back all these jobs, bring back all these factories? And Trump was like, yeah, I got the magic wand. All you got to do is cut taxes and regulation, and bam, people want to start building again. They want to start going back to the work. And Joe Biden, of course, is the only person benefiting from any of this because he didn't get rid of everything Donald Trump did, right? Just the stuff that kept the country safe and secure, okay? But other things he actually kept. But of course, not good enough because, as we already mentioned, every single month, it seems like those job numbers get revised down. Every single month, they lose more and more, and things don't look as bright as they were before. And as was just released yesterday, the Biden administration only created 12,000 jobs when they were expected to create 112,000 jobs. All right, that is where we're at. That's the America that we are currently living in. And as the Bubonic J says, energy always costs something. That is definitely true. And the only question is, what's the price on it? What's going to be the incentive? Is it easier to just drill down, right, and get the gas? Is it easier to drill down and frack and get the natural gas out of there than it is to dig up miles and miles and miles and miles of acreage, right? Which one's easier? Which one's more productive? Which one's safer for the environment? I know which one I would choose, and it's the one we currently have that we've made leaps and bounds on with the production in this country, right? That's exactly where we're at. Okay, I think this was my final prediction, 281. All right, as much as I would love for the numbers for Donald Trump, 312 from Atlas Intel, the most reliable pollster, by the way, for the last couple of election cycles. All right. As much as I would love to see a 312, I don't know if that is going to happen. My own personal prediction is 281 if Donald Trump wins. All right. Yeah. Drill, baby, drill, be beyond. That's exactly it. We got to get energy in this country because if we could increase energy to a mass amount, inflation, of course, will follow in that downward spiral, and hopefully we can get back to some normal living standards. But over here, I think Pennsylvania is the blue wall state Trump will take. I think Arizona, Trump will take. I think Wisconsin, Michigan, and Nevada will end up going blue, unfortunately. And then Trump will win with 281 and hopefully the popular vote. And like I mentioned, Nevada, I think, is going to be one of these places where the courts have stepped in and they accept the ballots after Election Day and ballots without postmarks. So I think Nevada is lost. A couple of days ago, I would have said Nevada is going red, but I think it's going to end up going blue. I hope I'm wrong. Wisconsin, once again, Tim Walz, he's the governor. That gives the mindset of the people. Will they be interested in Donald Trump? I hope so, but I don't know. I think that they've gone left and they're going to stay there. Michigan is corrupt. No chain of custody, no guardrails to protect from fraudulent votes, as was already proven and discussed in our segment with Mark Cuban. Not Mark Cuban, Marco Rubio. Mark Cuban's a dork. You can tell I've been streaming now for almost 3 hours. All right. So either way, I'm hoping this is it. I should screenshot this and post it up, etc. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. This has been a blast. And thank you so much, Killbot2000, for that super chat. My first ever super chat, by the way, for which I am eternally grateful, sir. That is awesome. Or ma'am, as it were. I'm assuming Killbot2000 is probably a dude. Probably a righteous dude. Right? So thank you very much for watching. Stay safe out there and be careful because they are coming after you. Vote MAGA. Get Donald Trump back in. Get out there. Cast your ballot. Even if you're in a blue state, even if you're in a red state, cast your ballot for that popular vote. Bless you all so much. Have a safe day and go Donald Trump.